The keys made a small, clean sound when Daniel lifted them off the hook. June heard it even over the smoke alarm. "Give those back," she said. Daniel closed his fist around them. Her house key stuck out between his fingers. Along with the grocery store tag Walter had punched a hole through, because the plastic kept splitting. Daniel's face was red from waving a dish towel under the alarm. "Mom, you left a pan on the stove. I know what I did." "No, you don't." He glanced toward his sister and then lowered his voice, which made the words worse. "You're confused. You don't even know when you're confused." Rachel stood beside the dining table with 4 cloth napkins in her hands. Elise had gone perfectly still by the sink. The saucepan sat on the cold burner now, its bottom blackened, a sour metal smell spreading through the kitchen. Nothing had burned except a thin skin of butter. Nothing had caught fire. The chicken was resting under foil, the beans were warm, and June could still tell anyone in the room exactly where the fire extinguisher was. Daniel put the keys in his pocket. "Tonight, you're not driving." June looked at the pocket, then at her son. Her right hand had already closed around the single brass key hidden in her cardigan. Nobody at the table knew what had opened. 6 hours earlier, June had been standing in the same kitchen with Walter's old radio playing too loudly on the windowsill. She kept meaning to move it. The antenna leaned against the glass, and whenever the wind rattled the window, static broke through the country station. Walter used to smack the side with 2 fingers and say the radio needed encouragement. June had tried it once after he died and felt so foolish she cried into the dishwater. That Sunday, she let the static stay. Rachel was coming from Richmond, Daniel and Elise from 20 minutes away, and June had chosen roasted chicken because it was difficult for anyone to call roasted chicken depressing. She had set out the blue serving bowl, though one edge was chipped, and had bought a pie from the bakery instead of attempting Walter's favorite lemon cake. 6 months was apparently long enough for people to stop bringing casseroles, but not long enough for them to stop watching her face when they said his name. She tucked the butter under the chicken skin, washed her hands, and caught herself reaching for a second coffee mug. "You're dead," she told the empty kitchen. "You don't need coffee." The radio answered with static. On the table near the phone lay a folded road map, a printout from Otis Bell's handyman and home repair, and 3 photographs June had taken at the river cottage the previous summer. She had not intended to leave them there. Daniel had a talent for noticing paper that wasn't his. She gathered everything and slid it beneath the stack of grocery circulars in the sideboard drawer. The photographs went in last: the sagging porch, the brown river beyond the sycamores, and the front room with her father's iron stove crouched in the corner like an old black dog. When June closed the drawer, the brass key was still on the table. She picked it up, rubbed her thumb over its square head, and put it in her cardigan pocket. The doorbell rang at 4:48. Daniel had his father's knock, but insisted on using the bell. 2 quick pushes, a pause, then another, as if June might have died between the first and second chimes. "Coming," she called. He was already trying the knob when she opened it. Why was this locked? "Because it's a door." Daniel gave her a look, then kissed her cheek. At 42, he had Walter's broad shoulders and June's habit of chewing the inside of his lip when worried. He carried a tape measure clipped to his belt, though he was wearing clean jeans and a shirt Elise had probably ironed. Elise stood behind him, holding flowers and a bottle of wine. "We brought both," she said. "I didn't know what kind of afternoon it was going to be." "That's wise." Elise laughed with visible relief and hugged June carefully, as though grief had made her ribs brittle. Daniel stepped inside and surveyed the hall. His eyes went to the scuffed baseboard, then the small crack above the coat closet. That wasn't there before. It's been there since 2009. No, the ceiling line. That is the ceiling line. He stared upward. "I can have Rick look at it." June took Elise's flowers. "If Rick comes here, he'll find $6,000 worth of trouble before he reaches the kitchen." "That's because Rick is thorough," Daniel said. "That's because Rick has a boat payment." Elise covered a smile by adjusting her purse. Daniel followed June into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator without asking. He inspected the milk date, shifted a covered bowl, and frowned at a small container of leftover rice. "You eating this?" "I was planning to have it bronzed. I'm just asking." "How old is it?" "Thursday." He held it up to the light. "This Thursday?" June took the container from him and put it back. That was how concern had begun arriving lately. Not as a question, but as an inspection. Daniel checked her tires, her pill organizer, the porch light. He had installed a camera doorbell she had not requested. then seemed offended when she unplugged it, because his phone announced every squirrel that crossed her steps. He meant well. People could do an astonishing amount of harm while meaning well. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later with windblown hair and a garment bag she had forgotten to leave at her hotel. She hugged June hard enough to be satisfying. "You got skinny," Rachel said. "So did you." "I paid money for mine." Rachel was 39 and wore narrow black trousers that made June feel underdressed in her own kitchen. She worked for a museum foundation and could make asking for money sound like offering someone a privilege. As a girl, she had hidden paperback novels inside her history textbook. As an adult, she hid irritation behind sentences that began with, "I understand." She greeted Daniel with, "You still have a tape measure on your pants. I came straight from checking a job. It's Sunday. Roofs don't know that. Roofs have a healthy work-life balance." For 10 minutes, the room warmed. Elise arranged the flowers. Rachel opened the wine. Daniel carved a sliver off the pie crust before dinner, and June smacked his hand with a wooden spoon. He grinned, suddenly 8 years old despite the gray beginning at his temples. Then he went into the dining room and called, "Mom?" June knew that tone. She found him beside the sideboard with the drawer open. The grocery circulars had shifted, exposing one corner of the repair estimate. "What's this?" "A drawer. From Otis Bell. You can read." "That's encouraging." Daniel pulled out the pages. "River Road? Is this for Amos's place?" Rachel looked from him to June. "Granddad's cottage? I asked somebody what a few repairs might cost." "A few?" Daniel tapped the estimate. "Electrical inspection, porch supports, chimney cleaning. Why? To see what they cost." Daniel glanced at Elise. It was so quick June might have missed it if she had not spent years watching him conceal bad report cards and overdraft notices. "What?" June asked. "Nothing?" "Elise?" Elise picked up her wine. "Daniel told me you mentioned going down there. I said I might spend some time there. Mom, that place has been shut up for 9 years. 7. It doesn't have real heat. It has heat. It has a stove invented during the Polk administration." Rachel leaned over the estimate. "Who's Otis Bell?" "He repaired the Viegas place next door." "When did you talk to him?" Daniel asked. "Tuesday." "How did you find him?" "The same way your father found every repairman he ever hired." "I asked Marisol who knew what they were doing." "Marisol is still there?" "She is in a lighthouse, Rachel. She didn't have to stay in one spot." Rachel snorted into her glass. Even Elise smiled, but Daniel did not. "You drove down there Tuesday?" "No." "Then how did you?" I called. "Daniel, I am allowed to use a telephone without notifying the family." He folded the estimate too sharply. "Nobody said you weren't." The kitchen went quiet except for the radio. June took the pages from him and returned them to the drawer. She could feel Rachel studying her, trying to decide whether the cottage was a plan, a grief impulse, or another thing to smooth over before returning to Richmond. Daniel cleared his throat. "We should still look at Hawthorne Place this week." "I'm not moving to Hawthorne Place. It's not a nursing home, I know. It has a fountain in the lobby and a woman named Brenda who says active lifestyle every third sentence." Elise stared into her wine. Daniel had clearly told her about the tour. "You went already?" Rachel asked. "Daniel took me for lunch." "It was an informational visit," Daniel said. "Brenda put a name tag on me." Rachel's mouth tightened. "You didn't mention this." "I was going to." "To whom?" June asked. Daniel set his palm on the counter. "Can we not turn every conversation into a trial? Dad's gone. You're here alone. You've been forgetting things." There it was, placed in the middle of the kitchen like something everyone had agreed to bring. June looked at Rachel. "Have I?" Rachel's pause lasted only a second. It was long enough. "You've had a rough year," Rachel said carefully. "That wasn't the question. You called me twice last month and told me the same story about Mrs. Hanley's mailbox." Mrs. Hanley backed over it twice. Despite herself, Elise made a choking sound. Rachel looked down, fighting a smile. Daniel did not budge. "You drove to the old pharmacy." "I drove toward the old pharmacy. Then I remembered it closed and turned around. You called me from the parking lot. Because I thought you'd find it funny. It wasn't funny to me." That stopped her. Not because he had won. Because, for the first time, June heard the fear under his impatience. Daniel had spent 2 years receiving calls that began with his father had fallen, his father could not breathe, his father was back in the hospital. Walter's death had ended the emergencies, but apparently Daniel's body had not received the message. June softened before she meant to. "I'm sorry it scared you," she said. "But being scared doesn't make you right about me." Daniel looked away. For a moment, she thought the evening might recover. She put the estimate away. Rachel changed the radio station. Elise carried the flowers into the dining room, and Daniel asked where June kept the carving knife, though it had occupied the same drawer since he was 12. Then the doorbell rang. Mrs. Hanley stood outside, holding a plastic container and complaining that June's recycling bin had blown against her azaleas. June walked her back down the path to retrieve it. Mrs. Hanley told the mailbox story again, blaming a delivery truck this time. By the time June returned, Rachel was calling from the dining room, Daniel was opening the wine, and the butter in the saucepan had gone from yellow to brown. The alarm shrieked before June smelled it. Everything after that happened too quickly and not quickly enough. Daniel grabbing the pan, Elise opening a window, Rachel standing with the napkins, June reaching for the alarm switch while Daniel shouted at her to stay back. Then came the sentence, "You're confused," and the keys disappearing into his pocket. They ate the chicken anyway. Daniel cut June's meat before she could stop him. Not obviously. He simply reached across, saying, "Here," as if her knife were dull. Rachel asked Elise about work. Elise described a customer who had returned a bathrobe after wearing it for 3 months. Everybody laughed where laughter was required. June chewed and listened to the keys knock faintly against Daniel's phone whenever he moved. After pie, he announced that he would drive her anywhere she needed to go in the morning. "I don't need to go anywhere." "Good, then take it easy." He kissed her forehead at the door. Rachel lingered after the others left. "I can stay." "At the hotel? Here, so you can listen for smoke alarms?" Rachel flinched. "That's not fair." "No." June's anger had gone cold and precise. "It isn't." Rachel picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. "Daniel shouldn't have said it that way. He shouldn't have said it at all. He's scared. I noticed everyone's fear. Nobody seemed to notice my humiliation." Rachel looked toward the hook where the keys had been. "Do you want me to get them back?" June could have said yes. Rachel would call Daniel from the car, use her calm fundraising voice, and negotiate her mother into possession of her own property. "No," June said. After Rachel left, the house settled around her. The radio had gone silent. On the stove, the ruined saucepan waited in a shallow bath of soapy water. June washed it until the black ring faded to brown. Then she dried her hands, opened the sideboard drawer, and took out the photographs, the estimate, and the folded road map. The brass key was warm from hours in her pocket. She laid it on the photograph of her father's river cottage. For the first time that evening, her hand stopped shaking. She left the map open until midnight. The cottage sat where River Road narrowed between a stand of sycamores and the old Viegas property, which Marisol now owned alone. On the map, the river was a clean blue ribbon. It did not show the mud under the back steps or the cottonwood fluff that clogged the screens in June. It did not show Amos standing in the yard with his suspenders hanging loose, telling June that a river taught patience because it never asked permission to change its mind. At 12:15, June returned the papers to the sideboard drawer. She carried the brass key upstairs and placed it in the saucer on her nightstand beneath Walter's watch. She slept badly. Once, she woke certain she had heard his cough from the bathroom. Another time, she dreamed Daniel was changing all the locks while she stood inside the house, moving from room to room with no way out. At 8:12, a key turned in the front door. June sat up. "Mom?" Daniel's voice traveled through the foyer. She pulled on her robe and went to the landing. He stood below her with 2 coffees and a paper bag tucked against his chest. Her keys dangled from one finger. "You could knock." "I did." "You used the key. You didn't answer." "I was upstairs. I know that now." June descended slowly, not because she needed to, but because rushing in a robe at 69 was how a person ended up providing evidence for her own confinement. Daniel held up the bag. "Egg sandwich. I have eggs. These are already sandwiches." Nature's final improvement. His smile appeared and disappeared. "Did you sleep?" "Yes." "Really?" "No, Daniel. I stood motionless in the pantry all night." He set the coffee down harder than necessary. "Can we start over?" "You can put my keys on the hook. I'll drive you to Dr. Patel's." "I don't have an appointment with Dr. Patel." "You do at 10:30. June reached the bottom step. Who made it? I called first thing. Cancel it. It's just a checkup. I had a checkup in February. That was before Dad died. Your father's death did not alter my cholesterol. It altered a lot of things. The paper bag gave off the warm, greasy smell of sausage. June's stomach tightened despite her anger. She walked past him into the kitchen and poured the coffee he brought down the sink. Daniel watched. That was $5. It's a terrible time to learn consequences. Mom, you made a medical appointment for me without asking. I told them about last night. June turned from the sink. You told my doctor I left butter on a stove? I told the receptionist I had concerns. About my mind, about how you're doing. The wording had softened, but the destination had not. She took an egg from the refrigerator, then another. Her hands wanted work. She cracked both into a bowl and whisked them with a fork while Daniel stood in the doorway. Sit down, she said. I'm not hungry. That's why you brought 2 sandwiches. One is yours. Sit. He sat. June heated a skillet and added butter. Daniel's eyes moved to the burner. She saw him watching it and nearly laughed. If she reached for salt, would he note which hand she used? If she misjudged the pepper, would he call Rachel? She made the eggs slowly, toast beside them, then turned off the burner with a deliberate click. Would you like me to demonstrate the smoke alarm? She asked. That's not funny. It's a little funny. She divided the eggs between 2 plates. Daniel unwrapped his sandwich but did not eat it. Rachel called me, he said. I'm sure she did. She thinks I overreacted. She inherited her intelligence from somewhere. She also said you're talking about staying at the cottage. June sat opposite him. I'm thinking about it. For how long? I don't know. By yourself? Unless Otis's estimate includes a live-in string quartet. Daniel rubbed both palms over his face. For a moment he looked older than Walter had at 50. You can't stay there alone. I have stayed alone in this house for 6 months. This house has neighbors. It has central heat. If something happens, an ambulance can get here. If something happens. That phrase could swallow a whole life. He looked at her sharply. You think Dad would want you down there? June's fork stopped. Daniel knew at once he had gone too far. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You reached for the heaviest thing you could find. I'm trying to get you to listen. You could try talking to me instead of using your dead father as a crowbar. Daniel pushed his plate away. Fine, talk. What's the plan? I'm gathering information. What information? What repairs it needs? What it would cost to heat properly? Whether the road is still maintained in winter? That's not a plan. That's how you get attached to an idea before you realize it's impossible. June stared at him. He had said nearly the same thing at 19, when Walter told him to price insurance before buying a motorcycle. At 28, Daniel had signed a lease on a workshop without checking whether the electrical panel could support his equipment. June had spent 3 weeks helping him move again. You've survived a number of impossible ideas, she said. That's different. They usually are when they belong to you. His jaw worked. June knew the signs, first the tight mouth, then the hands. Then a sudden practical task performed with unnecessary force. Daniel stood and began gathering dishes. Leave them, I'm helping. I didn't ask. Exactly. The plate struck the sink with a clatter. Neither of them spoke. June thought of Walter's last winter, when Daniel had arrived every Saturday to repair something that was not broken. He tightened cabinet hinges, recaulked the tub, cleaned gutters in freezing rain. Walter, too weak to cross the room without resting, would watch from his chair and say, "Boy thinks he can keep death out with a socket wrench." June had defended Daniel then. He doesn't know what else to do, she had told Walter. Perhaps he still didn't. At 10, June put on navy trousers, a cream blouse, and lipstick, the color Rachel claimed made her look dangerous. She did not need to see Dr. Patel, but refusing to go would become another item in Daniel's invisible file. Going felt like surrender. She chose it because she wanted the receptionist to hear her cancel the appointment herself. Daniel held the passenger door open. June looked at the driver's seat. I can drive. Not today. You're holding the keys to my car. I said I'd take you. That doesn't answer me. His face closed. Get in, Mom. She got in because arguing on the driveway in front of Mrs. Hanley's window would only add an audience. Daniel shut her door with exaggerated care. On the way, he took the route past the cemetery without turning. I'd like to stop, June said. We're already running late. The cemetery is 2 minutes off Maple. We can go after. Do you want to stop or not? I want you to stop. Daniel sighed and kept driving. After the appointment, the refusal was so small it might have seemed ridiculous to anyone else. June sat with her purse on her lap and watched the cemetery gates pass behind them. Daniel had begun by taking the keys. Now he was deciding when she could visit her husband. Dr. Patel's receptionist, a silver-haired woman named Beverly, looked from June to Daniel with the alert misery of someone who had been given too much family information before breakfast. "I won't be keeping today's appointment," June said. Beverly touched her keyboard. "Mrs. Mercer." It was added as an urgent consultation. "By my son." Daniel stepped closer. "She had an incident last night. I burned butter. You left a pan unattended to answer the door." Beverly's eyes fixed on the monitor as if it contained an escape hatch. June put one hand on the counter. "I will schedule my own appointment if I need one. Please make a note that Daniel is not authorized to schedule them for me." "Mom, come on." Beverly looked at June now. "I can do that. Thank you." Outside, Daniel walked ahead of her to the car. "Feel better?" he asked. "Not especially." "You embarrassed me." June stopped beside the passenger door. "That is an interesting complaint." His mouth opened, then closed. He unlocked the car. They did not stop at the cemetery. Instead, Daniel drove to the supermarket because he had looked inside June's refrigerator and decided she needed groceries. He pushed the cart, rejected a small carton of milk for being poor value, and put a family-sized package of chicken breasts in the basket. "What am I supposed to do with 6 chicken breasts?" "Freeze them. My freezer has food in it." "You said you needed groceries." "I said I needed dish soap." He looked around the aisle as though dish soap might be hiding among the poultry. June removed the chicken. Daniel put it back. She stared at him. "What?" he said. "You eat chicken." A laugh escaped her before she could prevent it. Not a pleasant laugh. "I am being kidnapped by a man with a coupon." The woman choosing pork chops beside them moved her cart away. Daniel dropped the chicken into the basket. "Could you lower your voice? Could you give me my keys? Not until we figure out what's going on." "What does that mean?" "It means we talk to somebody. We look at options. We make sure you're safe. And until then, I'll take you where you need to go. Except the cemetery." His expression flickered. "I had work. You had control." Daniel's phone rang. He looked at the screen and answered with his business voice, bright and firm. "Mercer Contracting, this is Daniel." June walked away with the cart. She bought dish soap, a single tomato, coffee, and the smallest carton of milk available. At checkout, she realized her wallet was not in her purse. For one awful second, her mind emptied. She searched the inner pocket, the side zipper, the place where she kept tissues. Daniel ended his call and came toward her. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." The cashier waited. June searched again. Her wallet was not there. She pictured it on the sideboard, beside the grocery circulars, or perhaps in the cardigan she had worn last night. She could not remember moving it. Daniel saw the answer in her face. "I've got it," he said quietly. "I have money, I know." He paid without another word. In the car, June looked through her purse a third time. Her cheeks burned. Daniel started the engine, but did not pull away. "This is what I'm talking about," he said. "I left my wallet at home. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." "Do you?" June turned toward the window. It was a simple mistake. Anyone could leave a wallet behind. Daniel had once driven to a job in Norfolk with the wrong toolbox and blamed June because she had distracted him on the phone. But the timing made the mistake feel staged against her. When they reached the house, Daniel carried the groceries inside. June went directly to the sideboard. No wallet. She checked the kitchen counter, the hall table, her coat pocket. Daniel stood in the foyer, keys in his hand. "Upstairs?" he suggested. "I don't need help." She climbed the stairs, entered her bedroom, and found the wallet beside Walter's watch on the nightstand. The cottage key was gone. June searched beneath the saucer, then lifted the watch. Her breath shortened. She checked the floor, the bedspread, the drawer. Then she remembered. Before dressing for Dr. Patel, she had put the brass key back into her cardigan pocket so Daniel would not see it. The cardigan hung on the bathroom door. She reached into the pocket and closed her fingers around the key. Relief came first, followed by anger at having been made to doubt herself. "Downstairs," Daniel called. "Did you find it?" June held the wallet in one hand and the cottage key in the other. "Yes," she said. She slipped the key into the zippered compartment of her purse beside the wallet and closed it firmly. Then she called Rachel. "I need you to do something for me," she said. Rachel lowered her voice. "What kind of something?" June could hear traffic in the background and the soft mechanical voice of an elevator announcing a floor. "I need a ride on Wednesday." "Where?" "To the cottage." There was a pause. "For the day?" "No." Another elevator bell sounded. "Mom." "Please don't use his tone. I'm using my own tone. It happens to be alarmed." Daniel opened a cupboard downstairs. June heard a plate move, then another. He was putting away her groceries as if he lived there. "I'm not asking you to agree," June said. "I'm asking whether you can drive me. How long are you planning to stay?" "I don't know. Is there electricity?" "There was electricity 7 years ago." "That isn't comforting. I'm not trying to comfort you." Rachel exhaled. "I have to be back in Richmond Thursday morning. Then you can leave Wednesday evening. You want me to drop you at an unheated cottage and drive away? The heat is unreliable, not non-existent. There's a difference." "Is there a functioning bathroom?" Your grandfather managed. Granddad also thought expiration dates were government propaganda. Despite herself, June smiled. Amos had once eaten mustard older than Rachel and called it aged. "I have an appointment with Otis at 11, June said. She did not. "Not yet. I'll confirm everything before we go." "Does Daniel know?" "No." "Does he know you're asking me?" "No." "Then this isn't a ride, this is an extraction." Downstairs, Daniel called. "Mom, your milk's put away." June turned toward the bedroom door and spoke more quietly. "He kept my keys. He made a doctor's appointment without asking me. He drove past the cemetery after I asked him to stop. He told me about the pan." "Of course he did." He sounded scared. "He wants everybody frightened enough to agree with him." "That doesn't mean the cottage is a good idea." "No. The cottage can be a bad idea all by itself." That silenced Rachel. June sat on the edge of the bed. Walter's sigh dipped slightly from years of his weight, though she knew that was probably imagination. The house was full of physical habits that survived their owners. "I need to find out whether I can still make a decision Daniel dislikes," she said. "I'd rather find out before he starts choosing my curtains at Hawthorne Place." Rachel made a small sound, half laugh and half surrender. "You'd hate those curtains. They're beige. All curtains there are beige. The people are beige by the time Brenda finishes the tour." "Wednesday," Rachel said, 8:30. "But I'm going inside that cottage before I leave you there, and if the roof is on the floor, you're coming back with me. That's fair. And you call Otis today." "I will. And Marisol." "Yes. And if Daniel asks me directly, he won't." "You have enormous faith in a man who checks refrigerator dates." June heard Daniel start up the stairs. "I'll see you Wednesday," she said, and ended the call. He appeared at the bedroom door before she had lowered the phone. "Who was that?" "Rachel." "What does she want?" "To speak with me?" Daniel leaned against the frame. "I put your dish soap under the sink, where it has lived since 1986. He glanced at the wallet in her hand. "You found it?" "Yes." "Where was it?" "Beside the bed." The relief on his face irritated her more than suspicion would have. "Good. See? No big deal. No big deal now that the mistake had been solved in his favor." He reached into his pocket and took out the key ring. June's pulse lifted. For a second she thought he meant to return it. Instead, he separated her house key from the ring and set it on the dresser. "You need this if I'm not here. I needed it this morning. You were inside." "My car key." "Not yet." June picked up the house key. "How long is not yet?" "Let's talk after Hawthorne tomorrow. I never agreed to go." "You said you wanted information before making decisions about the cottage. Then we look at both." It was almost clever. Had Walter been there, he might have winked at June over Daniel's shoulder, pleased by the boy's argument even while disagreeing with it. "Fine," June said. Daniel blinked. "Fine? I'll look." He studied her, suspicious of cooperation now that he had demanded it. 10 o'clock. "I'll be ready." After he left, June called Otis Bell. A woman answered and shouted for Otis as if he were in another county. There was clanging, a muffled complaint, then a voice June remembered as dry and slow. "June Mercer. Well, I was starting to think I scared you off with the porch number. You nearly did. Porches are expensive because people insist on standing on them. Can you meet me there Wednesday? To look over the place? To tell me what it needs before a person can sleep there?" Otis paused. "This person particular?" "Not very." then 11. Marisol answered on the fourth ring. June, you still have my number. You still have the same number. That's less impressive. Marisol laughed, a rich burst that carried June backward to summer evenings, when they had sat barefoot on Amos's steps, drinking beer from bottles wrapped in paper napkins. What's happened? Marisol asked. Why does something have to happen? Because for 7 years, you've called at Christmas and sent me a card with a cardinal on it. Now you're calling in April. June looked through the bedroom window at the small square of backyard Walter had kept too neat. I'm coming to the cottage Wednesday. For how long? I don't know. Marisol did not say that the place was isolated or damp or too much for her. She asked, Do you still drink your coffee like roofing tar? Yes, I'll get the pot ready. Tuesday morning, Daniel arrived 9 minutes early and inspected June's outfit as though Hawthorne Place enforced a dress code. June wore gray slacks and a blue sweater. Her cottage key, wallet, and repair estimate were zipped inside her purse. You look nice, he said. So do you. I'm in work clothes. I was being polite. Hawthorne Place smelled of lemon cleaner and cinnamon buns. Brenda met them beneath the lobby fountain wearing a green suit and a wooden brooch shaped like a hummingbird. June, she said, taking both of June's hands. I'm so glad you came back. I was brought back. Brenda's smile remained professionally uninjured. Well, sometimes family gives us the little nudge we need. Daniel touched June's elbow. She moved it away. Brenda showed them a one-bedroom apartment with beige curtains, beige carpet, and a balcony facing the parking lot. The kitchenette had no oven. Residents love the convenience, Brenda said. No yard work, no home maintenance, no worrying about what might go wrong. What if I enjoy worrying about what might go wrong? June asked. Brenda laughed uncertainly. We take that burden away. On the ground floor, they passed a card room where 4 adults were arguing cheerfully over bridge. A white-haired man accused a woman named Lois of cheating. Lois told him that if he were brighter, she wouldn't have to. June slowed. Daniel noticed. They have activities every day, I can see, and transportation. I can also see that. For one dangerous moment, June imagined living there. Not because Daniel was right, but because the apartment required nothing from her. No cracked ceiling, no wet leaves in gutters, no nights listening for Walter. She could close one door on her life and let other people decide when to serve dinner. The thought felt less like peace than anesthesia. Brenda led them into her office and placed a folder in front of Daniel. June reached for it. Brenda redirected it toward her so quickly the paper spun. Of course. What happens if I choose not to join activities? June asked. Everything is optional. And if I leave butter on a burner? Daniel shifted. Brenda's smile tightened. Our apartments have automatic shut-offs. What if I want to drive? Residents may keep their cars. June turned to Daniel. Hear that? We're not doing this here. This is exactly where we're doing it. Brenda studied the hummingbird on her own lapel. June stood. Thank you for the tour. You have a very nice building. You don't have to decide today, Brenda said. I've decided today. Outside, Daniel followed her across the parking lot. You enjoyed that. The bridge game looked vicious. You know what I mean. June stopped beside her car, which he had driven. I did enjoy watching someone speak to me instead of through me. I told Brenda you were coming. That's why she looked at me. You told Dr. Patel I was coming too. For God's sake, I'm trying to keep you safe. From what? From being alone when something happens. The shout carried across the parking lot. A woman loading groceries into her trunk looked over. Daniel lowered his voice. Dad lay on that bathroom floor for 20 minutes because you couldn't get him up. The words hit with the bluntness of a dropped pan. June remembered Walter's cheek against the tile, his skin gray, the terrible wet sound in his throat. She remembered calling Daniel twice before calling the ambulance because Walter had begged her not to make a fuss. Daniel's eyes shone. I'm not doing that again. You weren't there, June said. That's the point. She understood then that Daniel had built a story in which enough supervision could have saved Walter. If June accepted supervision, perhaps his father's death would become an error he could correct. She touched his arm. He went rigid beneath her hand. Your father died because his heart was failing, she said. Not because you were at work. You don't know what would have happened if... Nobody knows. He pulled away and unlocked the car. On the drive home, he stopped at the cemetery. He remained in the car while June walked to Walter's grave. The temporary marker had been replaced by the stone she and Daniel chose together. Walter James Mercer. Husband, father, friend. The words looked insufficient, but there had been a charge for every letter. June brushed dried grass from the base. "I'm leaving Wednesday," she told Walter. The wind moved through the young maple behind the grave. "You'd say it's too soon, then you'd say Daniel's being an ass, then you'd ask what's for lunch." She stayed until Daniel came to stand several feet behind her. "Ready?" he asked. "No," June said, "but I'm coming." At home, she packed one large suitcase, 2 boxes of kitchen things, sheets, towels, her medications, the road map, and Walter's radio. She placed the photographs inside a cookbook so their corners would not bend. She did not pack his clothes. At 8:28 Wednesday morning, Rachel's rental car pulled into the driveway. June carried the first box onto the porch. Rachel got out, looked at the luggage, and said, "You understand my agreement included 1 suitcase." I lied. I respect that more than I should. Together, they loaded the trunk. Rachel found Walter's radio, wedged between towels, and looked away for a moment. When June turned to lock the front door, Daniel's truck came around the corner. It slowed. Rachel whispered, "You said he wouldn't ask me directly." "He hasn't yet." Daniel pulled into the driveway behind them, blocking the rental car. He got out holding June's keys. "What the hell is this?" June set the box down on the porch. "It's me leaving," she said. Daniel looked at the rental car, then at Rachel. "You're helping her do this?" "I'm driving. That's helping. It usually is." He walked toward the trunk. "Mom, take your things back inside." June stepped between him and the car. "Don't touch my things." His expression changed. Not anger first. Hurt. It made him look like the boy who had once come home with a broken lamp wrapped in a bath towel and insisted the cat had climbed a bookshelf. "You planned this behind my back. I planned it outside your control. There's a difference. You didn't even tell me. You would have done exactly what you're doing. I'm doing this because you're moving into an abandoned cabin without heat." "Cottage," Rachel said. Daniel swung toward her. "Whose side are you on?" Rachel folded her arms. "I'm on the side where we stop saying side like we're 12. June glanced at the neighboring houses. Mrs. Hanley's living room curtain moved. "Move your truck," June said. "No." The word was quiet. Rachel stared at him. "You're blocking us in. I know where my truck is." "So does Mrs. Hanley," June said. "She's probably reporting your license plate to 3 people. Daniel ignored that. He held up June's key ring. Sunlight flashed on the metal. "You want to go for a day? Fine. We'll all go Saturday. We'll see what needs doing. Otis is meeting me there this morning. You already hired somebody?" I asked for an inspection. "Mom, you don't know this man. I've known Otis since before you had teeth. That doesn't mean you know him now." Rachel shifted beside June. "Daniel, move the truck." He looked at the boxes again. The top one was labeled kitchen in June's handwriting. Below it sat the suitcase, Walter's radio visible beneath a towel. Daniel's face went pale. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You're leaving the house?" "For now." "What happens to it?" "It remains a house. You can't just leave it empty." "I can. The insurance is paid." "The yard?" "Mr. Hanley has been cutting it since Walter got sick." "You never told me that." "You never asked who cut the grass. You only pointed out when it was high." Daniel's fingers closed around the keys. "And you're going to live down there without a car? You could solve that problem." He looked at the ring in his hand, and June watched him understand the trap he had built for himself. Return the keys, and he surrendered the authority he had claimed. Keep them, and he could no longer pretend he was protecting her independence. Instead, he put them in his pocket. "It's not safe for you to drive right now. Because of butter, because you left your wallet yesterday, because you drove to the wrong pharmacy, because you're making decisions like this." June felt something inside her settle. She had spent 3 days answering every charge as though the correct explanation would restore her standing. There would always be another charge. "Move the truck." "Not until we talk." "We are talking." "No, you're issuing orders and calling it independence." The accuracy of it stung. Daniel had inherited more than Walter's shoulders. June lowered her voice. "I am angry, and I'm frightened, and I don't know if the cottage will work. But if I'm making a mistake, it belongs to me. What if the mistake hurts you? Then you'll get to say you warned me. You think that's what I want? I don't know what you want anymore." Daniel's phone rang from his pocket. He ignored it. It rang again. Rachel glanced at him. You should answer. Stay out of this. I was in it the second you parked behind my car. The phone stopped and immediately began again. Daniel swore, pulled it out and answered. Mercer contracting. His voice changed. June watched his shoulders tighten as somebody spoke. No, shut the water off at the curb. Don't touch the panel. He turned away. I said, don't touch it, Phil. I'm coming. When he faced them again, the family argument and the leaking job had collided inside him. For years, June had been the person he called when collisions happened. She had moved appointments, waited for deliveries, carried forgotten invoices across town. You have to move, Rachel said. Daniel stared at June. Please wait until tonight. No, one day. You had 3. He flinched as though she had slapped him. The phone crackled against his ear. Someone said his name loudly enough for June to hear. Daniel walked to his truck, climbed in, and backed into the street. He lowered the window. If you get there and it's bad, you call me. June wanted to say, I always have. Instead, she said, return my keys. He looked forward. Daniel. The truck pulled away. Mrs. Hanley's curtain fell closed. Rachel released a breath. Well? June picked up the box again. Your hands are shaking, Rachel said. They can shake in the car. The first 40 miles passed beneath a silence neither of them knew how to end. Rachel drove with both hands on the wheel, checking the mirror too often. June watched subdivisions give way to fields, then low-wooded hills. Dogwoods had begun flowering along the road, white against the bare branches. At a gas station outside Fredericksburg, Rachel bought coffee and 2 packages of crackers. She returned to find June, standing beside the rental car with her face turned toward the sun. You okay? I need a better question. Are you having chest pain? Worse question. Do you regret coming? June considered it. Ask me after we see the roof. Rachel handed her a coffee. That was my next question. They turned onto River Road just after 10:30. The pavement narrowed, patched in dark strips where winter had broken it. June recognized the ruined tobacco barn, the white church with the crooked bell tower, the stone wall Amos claimed had been built before the Civil War. Some things had changed. The bait shop was now a farm store with painted gourds lined across the porch. The old gas station had become a place selling coffee with names Amos would have distrusted. At the bend above the river, June saw the cottage. The roof was still where it belonged. That's our first victory, Rachel said. From the road, the place appeared smaller than June remembered. Gray clapboards had faded almost silver. One shutter hung at an angle. The porch sagged toward the left corner, as though tired of holding itself upright. Behind it, the river moved brown and broad through the trees. Rachel parked beside an old green pickup. A narrow woman in rubber boots came down the porch steps, dark hair threaded with silver and tied at the nape of her neck. Marisol opened June's door before June could. You took your time, she said. Then she bent and hugged her. Marisol smelled like wood smoke, coffee, and the same lavender soap she had used 30 years ago. June held on longer than she meant to. When she stepped back, Marisol's eyes were wet, but her voice remained brisk. You brought the good daughter. Rachel blinked. How do you know which one I am? You look like you want to inspect the plumbing. That's accurate. Otis Bell emerged from beneath the porch. He was 73, broad through the middle, and wore coveralls with a folding ruler in the chest pocket. His white beard stopped at a sharp line beneath his chin. Found the problem, he announced. We've been here 40 seconds, June said. Problem was already here. He pointed to a porch post darkened at the base. Rachel looked alarmed. Is it going to collapse? Eventually everything does. Otis, June said. Not today. The cottage key resisted at first. June had to pull the door toward her while turning it, the way Amos had taught her. The lock gave with a dry click. Cool, stale air met them. Dust lay across the floorboards. The front room smelled of old wood, mouse nests, and river damp. Amos's iron stove stood in the corner, rust feathering its hinges. A faded braided rug curled at the edges. On the mantel, an empty jelly jar still held 3 fishing flies. Rachel stepped inside and looked up. No ceiling on the floor, June said. I'm adjusting my standards. Marisol had opened the windows the day before and switched on the electricity. 2 lamps worked. The kitchen faucet coughed, spat brown water, then ran clear. 1 bedroom baseboard heater clicked on after Otis struck the thermostat with the handle of a screwdriver. Encouragement, June murmured. What? Rachel asked. Nothing. Otis moved room to room, pressing floorboards with his boot, opening the electrical panel, climbing into the attic. Each sound above them made Rachel glance toward the ceiling. Marisol brewed coffee strong enough to strip varnish and produced ham biscuits from a covered dish. June stood in Amos's kitchen, holding one of his chipped mugs. Memory arrived without warning, Walter at the table, younger and impatient, telling her they could not spend every weekend fixing her father's place. Amos outside splitting kindling, pretending not to hear. You went quiet, Marisol said. I'm counting repairs. No, you're counting ghosts. June looked at her. Marisol shrugged. Repairs are easier. Otis returned with cobwebs on his beard and a list written on the back of an envelope. The chimney needs cleaning before you use the stove. Porch corner needs shoring. There's old water staining in the north bedroom, but it's dry. Roof patch held. Don't run the bedroom heater and the toaster oven together unless you enjoy darkness. Can she stay here? Rachel asked. Otis looked at June rather than Rachel. Tonight? To begin with, June said. He scratched his beard. You can sleep here. Whether you can live here is a larger question. What has to happen first? Today? Smoke detectors, porch brace, flush the water lines. I'd sleep in the small room until I inspect that stain better. How much? Otis named a figure that made Rachel inhale but did not shock June. His estimate had prepared her. And the rest? June asked. The rest depends on how warm and dry you expect your old age to be. Warm and dry sounds extravagant. It generally is. By 4, the porch had a temporary brace. The detectors worked, and Otis had cleaned enough debris from the gutters to fill 2 feed sacks. Rachel scrubbed the small bedroom, while June washed mouse droppings from kitchen drawers. Marisol returned home for blankets and a battery lantern. The work left June's wrist aching. When she tried to drag a narrow cabinet away from the damp wall, pain shot from her thumb to her elbow. She let go with a gasp. Rachel was beside her immediately. What happened? Nothing. Your favorite diagnosis. I pulled it. Rachel crouched and touched her wrist gently. You can't do this alone. June looked at the cabinet, then at the dust on her own knees. I know. The answer surprised them both. Rachel sat back on her heels. Then, come home tonight. We'll make an actual plan. I can make one here. With 1 working heater. 1 is the traditional number for a small bedroom. Mom. June flexed her fingers. The ache remained. I'm not staying to prove Daniel wrong, she said. If I leave because the cottage is impossible, I'll leave. But I'm not going home because the first day hurt. Rachel studied her for a long moment. Call me tonight. Yes. Not text. Call. Yes. And keep the lantern beside the bed. I am capable of operating a lantern. You poured coffee down the sink because Daniel bought it. That was a political act. Rachel laughed, then covered her eyes with one hand. When she lowered it, she was crying. June sat beside her on the dusty floor. I don't like leaving you, Rachel said. I know. I don't like him being right about some of it. I know that too. Outside, the river moved past the cottage without hurry. They sat shoulder to shoulder until Marisol came through the door carrying blankets and said, If this is a meeting, I object to holding it on the dirtiest floor in Virginia. Marisol set the blankets on the table and handed Rachel a dust rag. You can cry after the shelves, she said. Dust sticks to tears. Rachel laughed wetly. You haven't changed. You have. You used to be shorter. June pushed herself up, using her good hand. The room tilted for half a second, then steadied. She saw Rachel notice and pretended to be interested in the cabinet. Don't move that, Rachel said. I was looking at it. You looked at it with intent. Otis came in behind Marisol carrying 2 smoke detectors and a length of orange extension cord. Cabinet's heavier than it looks. All of you are becoming tiresome, June said. That's how community works, Marisol replied. They ate ham biscuits on paper towels because June could not remember which box held the plates. Otis explained the electrical problems in a language he seemed to invent while speaking. The old panel was not dangerous if treated with respect, he said, which meant June should not plug 3 modern appliances into a house wired when toast was considered advanced technology. The refrigerator's all right, he told her. Bedroom heater's all right. Water heater is sulking, but I'll come tomorrow. Can I take a shower? If you're quick and morally prepared for cold water. Rachel wrote everything down on hotel stationery. She made columns labeled now, soon, and absolutely not, under absolutely not. She wrote move cabinet alone and underlined it twice. June added, let Daniel direct operations. Rachel looked at the words and sighed. You two are exhausting in exactly the same way. Your brother and I are nothing alike. Of course not. By 6, Rachel had delayed leaving 3 times. First, she wanted to make the bed. Then she needed to test June's phone signal from every room. Finally, she stood on the porch with her rental car running and inspected the river as though it might make a sudden move. Call me when you're inside, she said. I'll be inside before you're out of the driveway. Call anyway. June hugged her. Rachel held on tightly, her chin tucked against June's shoulder. You can change your mind, Rachel whispered. So can you. About what? About always being the one who understands. Rachel pulled back. June touched a strand of hair away from her face. You don't have to defend Daniel to me or me to Daniel. He and I can carry our own argument. That sounds healthy and deeply inconvenient. It's a new program. Rachel glanced toward Marisol's house through the trees. You're not alone. No. Say it like you believe it. I'm not alone. After the rental car disappeared around the bend, the cottage seemed to exhale. The day's voices left behind a silence that was different from the silence in June's suburban house. There, every quiet room contained Walter's absence. Here, the quiet belonged to itself. Water murmured against the bank. A branch scraped the roof. Something small moved beneath the porch with the confidence of a creature that had not been consulted about ownership. June locked the door. She reheated a ham biscuit in a skillet because Otis's warning had made the toaster oven sound like a form of gambling. She ate at Amos's table while the light faded over the river. The kitchen bulb flickered once. June stared at it until it behaved. At 8:15, she called Rachel. I am inside, she said. Did you eat? Ham. Protein. Good. Between bread. Less good, but acceptable. Rachel was back on the highway. Tires hummed beneath her voice. Daniel called me, she said. What did you tell him? That you arrived, that the roof is not on the floor, that Otis says you can sleep there. You did not have to report. I wasn't reporting. I was preventing him from driving 90 miles in a panic. June looked toward the window. Night had reduced it to a black square. Did it work? I don't know. He said, fine. In a way that meant the opposite. Your brother has always been gifted with that word. Rachel hesitated. He sounded hurt. So am I. I know. There was no smoothing sentence afterward. June appreciated the empty space Rachel left. She turned the dial. Static, a preacher, more static. Then a country song Walter used to dislike because the singer rhymed fire with desire twice. June laughed aloud. The laugh startled her. Later, the river woke her. At least she thought it was the river. A deep rushing sound filled the dark, followed by a crack beneath the window. June sat upright, heart hammering. The baseboard heater clicked off. The room went utterly silent. She reached for the lantern and knocked it to the floor. Damn it! Her bare feet found cold boards. She picked up the lantern and crossed to the window. Outside, the river was a strip of dull pewter through the trees. A branch lay in the yard, newly fallen from the sycamore. Nothing was wrong. That did not stop her hands from shaking. She sat on the edge of the bed with her phone. Daniel's name was near the top of her recent calls. One touch, and he would answer, even at 2 a.m. He might be angry, but he would answer. June pictured his truck arriving, his gaze moving from the old wiring to the sagging porch, collecting proof. She put the phone down. Then she picked it up again and called Marisol. Is the river supposed to sound like that? Marisol's voice was rough with sleep. Like what? Like it's moving furniture. Yes. A branch fell. Did it fall on you? No. Then we'll insult it in the morning. June drew the blanket around her shoulders. I'm sorry. For what? Waking you. You spent 11 years pretending you didn't need me. Don't become polite now. The words landed gently and still hurt. I didn't pretend, June said. You sent Christmas cards. I had Walter, so? June stared into the dark. Marisol's husband, Gabriel, had still been alive when Amos died. The 4 of them had once cooked fish outside and argued about whether river mud improved tomatoes. After Amos's funeral, Walter began finding reasons not to return. The roof needed attention at home. Daniel's business was struggling. Rachel was changing jobs. June had accepted every reason because they saved her from choosing. I should have called more, she said. Yes. No comfort came after it. Only the truth sitting between them. Marisol yawned. Now, go back to sleep. The river is loud because it likes attention. Like Otis? Otis is louder. June returned to bed. The heater clicked on again. She slept until sunlight reached the footboard. Otis arrived at 8 carrying a new thermostat and 2 blueberry muffins in a paper sack. Marisol says you survived the branch. News travels. She called at 6 to report the emergency. There was no emergency. That was her report. He repaired the water heater by replacing a part no larger than June's thumb, then charged her less than the price he had quoted. When she objected, he said the quote included crawling under the cottage, and he had found a way to make his nephew do it later. Your wrist, he said, noticing how she held the coffee pot. I pulled it. Doing what Rachel wrote under absolutely not? June disliked how quickly everyone had become informed. It's fine. Fine is not a medical term. It has served women for generations. Otis accepted that and showed her how to brace it with an elastic wrap. Then they walked through the cottage with his list. The porch repair would consume most of the money June had planned for the windows. The electrical work could be divided into stages, but the panel needed attention before summer humidity arrived. The chimney cleaning was affordable. Replacing the rusted gutters was not. What can wait? June asked. Otis drew lines beside 3 items. These, maybe this. Depends how much rain we get. And what can't. The post, the panel, and you learning not to move furniture with one hand. June wrote him a deposit check. The amount left in her account was not frightening exactly. It was clarifying. Walter's hospital bills had been paid, and the house expenses were manageable, but there was no magical pocket of money reserved for reinvention. Every repair at the cottage meant postponing something else. She could make the place livable. Comfortable would take longer. After Otis left, June washed the kitchen shelves. Marisol arrived with groceries and refused payment for them, until June threatened to price the coffee she had consumed in 1994. At noon, Daniel called. June let it ring twice before answering. How's the cabin? Still a cottage? Is the heat working? One heater is. One. It's a small room. He went quiet. June could hear men talking behind him, a saw starting somewhere nearby. I'll come get you, he said. I'm not ready to come home. I didn't ask if you were ready. No, that is the problem. He breathed into the phone. Rachel said you hurt your wrist. Rachel is efficient. How bad? Mildly. Did you have somebody look at it? Otis wrapped it. Otis is a handyman. He has seen wrists. Mom, I'm resting it. Another voice called Daniel's name. He covered the phone, answered, then returned. I need you to do me a favor. June waited. There's a blue folder in Dad's desk. It has the renewal information for my liability policy. Can you read me the account number? I'm 90 miles away. What? I'm at the cottage, Daniel. I know, but I thought maybe you took the folder. Why would I take your insurance papers to the river? You handled the renewal last year. I reminded you last year. You called the agent because you were on a roof and asked me to. He made the irritated sound that had preceded hundreds of small rescues. The payment didn't draft. They're saying they sent notices. To your email, I get 1,000 emails. So search them. I'm working. So was I, apparently. Silence. That's not fair, he said. June looked at the shelves she had scrubbed, at the elastic brace around her wrist, at Otis's list lying beside her checkbook. No, she said. It isn't. She ended the call. The phone rang again immediately. June turned it face down and went outside with her coffee. The porch brace looked ugly, but solid. Sunlight moved across the river. Somewhere downstream, a boat motor coughed to life. For 10 full minutes, June let Daniel solve his own problem. Then the sound of tires came down River Road. A familiar truck slowed at the bend. Daniel parked beside Otis's tire tracks and got out without turning off the engine. He had changed shirts since morning. A dark streak ran from his shoulder to his waist, and one knee of his work pants was soaked. He opened the passenger door and removed a canvas overnight bag. June remained on the porch. What's that? Your clothes. I have clothes. You have one suitcase. How many outfits do you think the river requires? Daniel shut the truck door. Elise packed some things. Your heavier coat, another pair of shoes, the charger you left by the couch. I brought a charger. Well, now you have two. He came toward the porch carrying the bag and a new electric heater in a cardboard box. He tested the first step with his boot before putting his weight on it. What happened here? Rot. I can see that. Why is there a 2x4 holding up the porch? Because Otis is apparently sentimental about gravity. Where is he? Working. Daniel looked under the porch, then up at the roofline. His gaze moved in quick measurements. June could almost see figures gathering in his mind. Lumber, labor, time, the distance to a hospital. He had always understood buildings more easily than people. Buildings usually admitted where they were weak. He lifted the heater. This is 1500 watts. Otis said not to use anything heavy on the old circuits. Of course he did. Then why did you bring it? Because one baseboard heater isn't enough. The alternative to bad wiring is not setting it on fire with a new appliance. Daniel stared at her, heater box in his arms. June sipped her coffee. I spoke to a professional. Otis Bell? You keep saying his name as though it's a joke. The screen door opened behind her. Marisol stepped out holding a plate covered with a dish towel. I've heard funnier, she said. Daniel blinked. Mrs. Vega. Marisol. You're old enough now. He shifted the heater to one arm and offered his hand. Marisol ignored it and kissed his cheek. You got Walter's forehead, she said. Daniel touched it automatically, then seemed annoyed that she had made him do so. Marisol lifted the towel. Cornbread. I'm taking her home. Then the cornbread will keep. June put down her cup. You drove 90 miles without asking me whether I wanted a ride. I knew what you'd say. So, you understand why the drive was unnecessary. Daniel set the heater on the porch. Can we talk inside? We're talking now, privately. Marisol handed June the plate. I'll be in the kitchen, making enough noise that I hear nothing. You don't need to leave, June said. I know. That's why I'm leaving. The screen door banged behind her. Daniel watched it swing. She seems exactly the same. She says you have Walter's forehead. Dad had a normal forehead. It was exceptionally stubborn. A smile pulled at one corner of his mouth. It vanished when he looked at June's wrapped wrist. Let me see. No. Rachel said. You heard it. When? Recently? Daniel stepped closer. Can you move your fingers? June demonstrated. Does that hurt? Less than this conversation. He took a breath and lowered his voice. I left a leaking water line and two men standing in a wet kitchen because my 69-year-old mother moved into a building that might not be safe. Your 69-year-old mother hired someone to determine whether it was safe, a 73-year-old handyman. Age has become a remarkably flexible objection. He's not an electrician. He's bringing one tomorrow. That stopped Daniel. Who? Someone Otis uses. Licensed? I asked. Daniel looked past her through the screen. The front room was visible from the porch. Bare boards, two boxes, Amos's stove, Walter's radio on the crate. Whatever he had imagined, it had probably involved June sitting helplessly in darkness. The ordinary evidence of work seemed to offend him. How much are you spending? My money. I'm asking a question. And I'm declining. His jaw tightened. You think I'm after your money. June did not answer quickly enough. Daniel took a step back. Wow. I think your mortgage frightens you. My mortgage is my business. Yes. You're the one who brings it up every time you decide I'm some kind of parasite. I have never called you that. You don't have to. You do the little list, the workshop deposit, the truck repair, the months you helped with the loan, because whenever I say no, you remind me how often I've said yes. He stared at her. June had not known the sentence was true until it came out. From the kitchen, a cabinet door closed too loudly. Marisol's promise to hear nothing was failing. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. I never asked you to pay my mortgage. No. But you and Elise discussed my house before I agreed to leave it. We discussed possibilities. For whom? For everybody. If you sold the place, you'd have money for Hawthorne. We could stop carrying a payment on a house that needs work. Maybe buy yours at a fair price. Whose fair price? His face reddened. This is exactly what I mean. You make it sound ugly. I don't have to make it anything. You saw an empty bedroom before I had decided to empty it. That is not why I took your keys. No, it may be why you found the idea useful. Daniel turned toward the river. For several seconds, only the truck engine and the water filled the space between them. I found the insurance email, he said. June waited. It was in spam. And I paid it. Good. I missed the deadline. There's a reinstatement fee. I'm sorry. You used to check that stuff. I used to help. What's the difference? Help is something I choose. You turned it into my assignment. He faced her again. So, now you're teaching me a lesson. No, I'm unavailable. Because you're down here playing house with people you haven't seen in years. The words struck Marisol as well as June. The kitchen went silent. June set the plate of cornbread on the porch rail before she dropped it. Turn off your truck, she said. What? You're wasting gas. Mom, turn it off, take your bag and your unsafe heater, and go back to work. Daniel looked toward the screen door, aware now of the silence inside. I didn't mean it like that. You rarely do. Come home with me tonight. We'll figure out the cottage properly. I'll get a crew down here. I'll look at the panel. I'll fix the porch. I have people doing those things. I'm your son. That is not the same as being my contractor. I can do it cheaper. I don't want to owe you. His face changed again, anger giving way to something raw. You don't want to owe me. June heard the weight he put on the last word. After Walter died, Daniel had handled the funeral home when June could not form complete sentences. He had stood in the rain with the cemetery manager. He had slept in the recliner for 3 nights because June kept waking and walking through the house. He had washed his father's body before the hospice nurse arrived, though nobody had asked him. The trouble was not that Daniel had never cared for her. The trouble was that care had frightened him into wanting command. I owe you many things, June said. My obedience isn't one of them. Daniel looked down at the porch boards. The truck engine coughed, idling unevenly. Can I at least look around? He asked. June considered. You can look. You cannot pack my suitcase. Fine. Inside, Daniel inspected the rooms with his hands in his pockets. He pressed the wall beneath the water stain, checked the kitchen outlets, and opened the panel. Marisol leaned against the counter and ate cornbread without offering him any. The post needs replacing, not just bracing, he said. Monday, June replied. The panel's old. Tomorrow, this window doesn't latch. On the list. He entered the small bedroom. The bed was made with Marisol's cedar-scented blankets. June's slippers sat beneath it. Her robe hung from a nail. Walter's radio rested within reach. Daniel touched the radio's cracked handle. You took this. Yes. He hated that station. He hated every station after 1998. Daniel turned the dial. Static filled the room, then a woman singing through distance. He adjusted it the way Walter had, 2 careful fingers on the knob. June watched her son's shoulders loosen. He used to put this on when we worked in the garage, he said. I know. He'd sing the wrong words on purpose. He claimed they were better. They weren't. No. For a moment, they shared Walter without using him as evidence. Then Daniel noticed the battery lantern beside the bed. What happened to the power? Nothing. Why's this here? Because Rachel worries. Rachel worries because this isn't safe. The moment closed. Daniel walked back to the front room. You've proved your point. Come home. June's patience thinned. Stop telling me what this means. What else could it mean? That I want to be here. Why? The question was genuine. That made it harder. June looked around the cottage. Dust remained in the corners. The iron stove needed cleaning. Amos's fishing flies sat gray with age on the mantel. Because nobody has decided who I am here yet, she said. Daniel gave a short, wounded laugh. You think I decided? You called me confused, then took my keys. What would you call that? I call it one bad night. I call it the reason I'm standing here. He picked up the canvas bag. Elise packed soup. It's in a cooler. I'll thank her. And your blue coat. Leave the coat. He carried the bag to the bedroom, but took the heater outside. At his truck, he finally turned off the engine. The sudden quiet felt enormous. I'm not okay with this, he said. You don't have to be. What happens when you need groceries? Marisol drove me today. You're going to depend on her? I'm going to pay for gas and behave graciously. You should try it. He almost smiled again. Then his gaze fell to her wrist. If it swells, you get it checked. Yes. And you call me tonight. No. Why not? Because you will use the call to continue this conversation. He opened his truck door. Daniel. He looked back. My keys. His hand went to his pocket. For a second, June thought he might throw them onto the porch. Instead, he climbed into the truck. I'll bring you home Sunday, he said. The engine started. June stood in the yard until the truck disappeared beyond the bend. Marisol came out and handed her a square of cornbread. "He was always the harder one," she said. "No," June replied. "He was the one I made easiest." She ate the cornbread while the dust from Daniel's truck settled over River Road. The electrician arrived the next morning in a white van with Pike Electric painted on the side and a ladder tied to the roof with pink rope. Lena Pike was 55, compact and unimpressed by charm. She listened to Otis explain the panel, then opened it herself and said, "You've got opinions again." "I brought you coffee," Otis replied. "That's why you're still here." June liked her immediately. Lena tested the outlets, removed 2 covers, and crawled beneath the cottage with a flashlight between her teeth. When she returned, she had cobwebs in her short gray hair and a dead beetle stuck to one sleeve. "The good news is, your father used decent wire where he used wire." "And the bad news?" June asked. "In 2 places he used confidence." Otis nodded. Amos had plenty of that. Lena recommended replacing the panel and correcting the worst of the improvised wiring before June added appliances or air conditioning. She wrote the price on the back of Otis's envelope. June read it twice. "That includes materials and labor. What if I don't replace it? You continue living like it's 1963, one hot thing at a time. No space heater, no window unit, no hair dryer while the water heater's running." June touched her hair. "This has not seen a dryer since Walter died. Then you're already adapting." Otis took the estimate and looked at it. "Fair." "I didn't ask you," June said. "No, that's why my opinion's free." The panel would consume nearly all the money she had reserved for windows, and part of what remained from Walter's final life insurance payment. That money had sat untouched, because spending it felt like reducing him to a balance. She had used some for the headstone, some for medical bills, and then stopped looking at the account. Now she pictured wire behind old plaster, heat building where she could not see it. "Do it," she said. Lena tucked her pencil behind her ear. "I can order everything today and start Tuesday." Otis pointed toward the porch. "I'll have the post done Monday. Everyone is very confident with my money." "It's a useful quality in contractors," Lena said. After they left, June sat at Amos's table with her checkbook, bank statements, and a calculator Rachel had packed without telling her. Numbers steadied June. They did not care who was frightened or offended. If she replaced the panel, repaired the porch, cleaned the chimney, and delayed the windows until autumn, she would still have enough for taxes, insurance, and ordinary expenses. Comfortable, as Otis said, would take longer. The cottage was not saving her, it was charging admission. Marisol came in carrying a bucket and found June staring at the total. "That bad?" "Not impossible." "Those are different things." June closed the checkbook. "What's the bucket?" "Garden tools." "My wrist is wrapped. You have another hand." They cleared dead leaves from the beds beside the kitchen. Amos had edged them with river stones, each one sunk under years of soil. June knelt on a folded towel and pulled weeds left-handed, while Marisol cut back rosemary that appeared mostly dead. "You should have pruned this in February," June said. "You should have visited in February." June sat back on her heels. "Are you planning to collect 7 years of complaints one at a time?" "I haven't decided. It gives us conversation. I said I should have called. And I agreed. What else do you want?" Marisol drove her trowel into the soil. "Nothing." "That's plainly untrue." Marisol looked toward the river. "Gabriel was sick for a year before he died." "I know. You know because I wrote it in a Christmas card." June had kept that card. She had placed it on the mantel and told Walter they should drive down. Then Walter's ankles swelled. Daniel needed help sorting receipts before tax season, and Rachel called about changing jobs. Weeks went past. Gabriel died in May. June attended the funeral, stood beside Marisol for 2 hours, and drove home before dark. "I thought you had people," June said. "I did. I didn't know what to say. You could have said that." June pressed her thumb into the cool dirt. "Walter was getting worse." "I know. He didn't want anybody to know. I knew that too." The sympathy in Marisol's voice made June's defense collapse. "I was tired," June said, "all the time. If I called you, I thought I'd have to hear how tired you were, and there wouldn't be enough room for both of us." Marisol's mouth tightened. "That is a terrible thing to admit," June added. "Yes, I'm sorry." Marisol pulled another weed. "That's better." They worked without speaking until the rosemary smell rose around them, sharp and green. At noon, Marisol found 2 living shoots beneath the gray branches. "See," she said, "mostly dead is not the same as finished. That sounds like something you've been waiting to say." It sounded better in my head. June laughed. That evening, Rachel called from Richmond. She asked about the wiring, the wrist, the water heater, the porch, and whether June had eaten anything containing a vegetable. "You've become Daniel with better manners," June said. Rachel went quiet. "I'm sorry," June said. "That was unfair." No, it was accurate enough to sting. June shifted the phone to her other hand. She sat on the porch beneath a blanket, watching insects gather around the yellow light. "Marisol told me to apologize properly today," she said. "Marisol always terrified me. She liked you. That was how she showed it." June rubbed the edge of the blanket between her fingers. "I'm sorry I always asked you to understand your brother." Rachel did not answer. "When he missed Thanksgiving, I told you he was working. When he borrowed money, I told you business was hard. When he forgot your gallery opening, I said men don't remember those things, which was insulting to everybody. It wasn't a gallery opening, the museum dinner. It wasn't about the event." "I know." Rachel's breath moved softly across the line. "You made me the easy one." "Yes. And then everybody got mad when I stopped being easy." "Yes. Daniel thinks you're punishing him. I'm beginning to think Daniel believes any consequence he dislikes is punishment." Rachel laughed once. "That's definitely inherited." "From Walter." "Sure." June smiled into the dark. "I'm sorry, I know. It was not absolution. It was more than June had expected." On Sunday, a blue sedan pulled into the yard instead of Daniel's truck. Elise stepped out carrying a cooler and wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. "Before you say anything," she called, "I'm not here to kidnap you." "Good. The porch won't support a struggle." Elise looked at the temporary brace. "That doesn't make me feel better." She had brought soup, bread, a bag of oranges, and June's mail. She set everything on the kitchen table and removed her sunglasses. The skin beneath her eyes was puffy. "Daniel had a job run long," she said. "He wanted to come. No, he wanted me to come. That too." June sorted through the mail. 2 catalogs, a utility bill, 3 sympathy cards from people who had apparently just heard about Walter, and an envelope from Hawthorne Place. "He asked me to bring the brochure," Elise said. June put it aside, unopened. Elise walked around the kitchen, touching nothing. She paused at the window above the sink. "It's beautiful. It leaks cold air. Beautiful things are allowed to be inconvenient." "Tell Daniel," Elise gave a tired smile. "Daniel thinks inconvenience is a personal attack." June put the kettle on. "How bad is the mortgage?" Elise turned from the window. "You may decline," June said. "I'd like to." "Then do." Elise sat at the table. "It's not foreclosure bad. It's not eating beans bad. It's 2 people checking the account before buying tires bad. And you thought my house would solve that. We thought maybe we could buy it from you. Eventually, at a fair price." Elise winced. He shouldn't have said that. What did fair mean? "I don't know. Less than a stranger would pay, probably. But you wouldn't have realtor fees, and we'd keep it in the family. My family would still exist if a stranger lived there." "I know." The kettle began to whistle. June turned off the burner, aware of Elise watching and hating herself for being aware. "We weren't waiting for Walter to die," Elise said quietly. June poured the water. "I didn't say you were. You thought it. I thought you were too quick to imagine the house without me." Elise accepted her cup with both hands. "That's fair. Apparently we're all using that word." They drank tea while rain tapped the kitchen windows. Elise told June that Daniel had slept 4 hours in 2 nights, that he had paid the insurance fee, and that he was furious June had stopped answering his second call. "He thinks you left because he needed too much," Elise said. "I left because he decided I was too little." Elise looked down at her tea. "He doesn't know how to be scared without becoming bossy. You've noticed, I married it." June laughed, then saw Elise was not entirely joking. Before leaving, Elise set Daniel's copy of the Cottage estimate on the table. "He found it in the photo I sent him," she said. "You photographed my estimate? At your house, when we were talking about options." June's warmth toward her cooled. Elise saw it. "I shouldn't have. No, he wants to compare prices. I did not ask him to. I know that now." June slid the paper back across the table. "Take it." Elise folded it and put it in her purse. At the door, she hesitated. "He still has your car key." "I know. He keeps it on his regular ring now. as though it belonged there. "Thank you," June said. On Monday morning, Marisol drove June 90 miles to the suburban house. A locksmith. June had called, met them in the driveway, and programmed a replacement key while Mrs. Hanley watched from her porch. June paid the bill, opened her car, and sat behind the wheel. The seat was too far back. Daniel had moved it. She adjusted it until the mirrors held the world where she expected. Marisol leaned through the open window. "You sure?" "No." "Good. Confidence makes people use wire badly." June started the engine. She drove the long way back to River Road, with Marisol following close behind. The first 10 miles were worse than the remaining 80. June heard every sound the car made. A rattle beneath the dashboard became a failing engine. A truck approaching in the opposite lane seemed too close. When she reached for the radio and drifted half an inch toward the shoulder, Daniel's voice rose inside her head. Confused. She turned the radio off. At a stoplight, Marisol pulled beside her and lowered the passenger window. "You drive like a nun." "I'm being careful." "You're causing weather behind you." The light changed. A line of cars had gathered behind June, patient at first and then less so. She pressed the accelerator and reached the speed limit. Nothing terrible happened. Outside Fredericksburg, she stopped at the pharmacy that had replaced the one she had mistakenly driven toward. She parked, bought pain cream for her wrist, and returned to the correct car without wandering the lot or misplacing her wallet. The accomplishment was so ordinary, it almost made her cry. Marisol was waiting beside her pickup. "Everything all right? I bought something. That's generally what pharmacies are for." June held up the bag. Marisol's face softened. "Do you want me to drive your car?" "No." "Good." They reached the cottage just before 3. Otis had removed the temporary brace and half the rotten porch post. The roof over that corner rested on 2 thick supports, and a pile of dark crumbling wood lay in the yard. "You own a car," he observed. "I've owned it for 6 years. It finally found you." June locked it and slipped the new key into her pocket. The plastic head was black and unmarked, without Walter's punched grocery tag. It felt too new, as though it belonged to a rental. Her phone rang before she reached the porch. Daniel. Marisol read the name on the screen and said, "Mrs. Hanley works quickly." June answered. "Hello? You hired a locksmith?" "Yes." "You could have called me." "I did. You never asked for the key today. I asked you Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I was going to bring it." "When? I don't know." "When I came down. So I was supposed to wait until your next inspection." "That's not what I said." June walked away from Otis and Marisol, though neither pretended not to listen. "I replaced my key to my car," she said. "There is nothing to discuss." "There is. If you're driving when you shouldn't be." "Who decided I shouldn't?" "You nearly got lost going to a pharmacy." "I did not nearly get lost. I remembered the old store closed. You left your wallet, I found it. You moved out of your house without telling anybody. Rachel drove me. You know what I mean?" "Yes," June said. "I know exactly what you mean." Daniel exhaled hard. Behind him, a truck reversed with a warning beep. "I'm not trying to fight," he said. "Then don't. You still need to have the car checked. It was pulling left last month." This was the problem. Buried inside every act of control was a fact June might need. The car had been pulling left. Walter would have taken it in before the tread wore unevenly. "I'll make an appointment." "Where?" "At a garage." "Which one?" "Goodbye, Daniel. Mom, wait. I have your original." She ended the call. Otis fitted the new porch post, while Marisol held a level. June carried small pieces of rotten wood to the pile, until Otis told her the job did not become more valuable because she touched every part of it. "I'm paying for this porch," she said. "Yes, I should help." "You are helping. You're paying. I could hand you nails. I have pockets." Marisol looked over the level. "He's saying you're in the way." I understood him. I disliked his tone. June went inside and began sanding the kitchen cabinet doors. She worked left-handed, badly. Dust floated into her coffee. After 20 minutes, the sander jerked against her wrapped wrist, and pain climbed her arm. She switched it off. No one had seen. She sat at Amos's table until the pain eased, then wrote "sand cabinets beneath autumn" on Otis's list. The act felt like defeat for several seconds. Then it felt like a plan. Lena replaced the electrical panel the following day. The work required shutting off the power, and the cottage filled with drilling, footsteps, and technical complaints. June tried to read on the riverbank, but kept returning whenever someone said, "Huh." "Go away," Lena told her the third time. "It's my house. It'll still be your house from over there." At noon, June drove alone to the farm store that had replaced the bait shop. She bought tomatoes, bread, and a small jar of expensive preserves Amos would have called robbery. She sat at an outdoor table with coffee and watched two women argue over vegetable seedlings. Nobody asked whether she should be driving. Nobody cut her food. When she returned, the new panel was installed. White labels identified each circuit in Lena's narrow handwriting. Bedroom, kitchen, water heater, front room. June touched the metal door. "You can run the toaster and dry your hair now," Lena said. "A reckless level of freedom. Don't get carried away." The invoice hurt more than the wrist, but that evening June turned on the bedroom heater while the water heater ran and waited for darkness. The lights stayed on. Rachel arrived Saturday with paint samples, 2 bottles of wine, and a bag of salad large enough to feed an office. She found June on the porch scraping loose paint from a railing. "You were told to rest your wrist. I'm using the other one. You have become very literal. I'm conserving energy." Rachel had selected 4 shades for the kitchen. 3 were pale green. The 4th was called River Mist and appeared gray. "The river is brown," June said. "Paint companies are aspirational. They chose the lightest green." Otis had repaired the cabinet hinges, and Rachel removed the doors while June lined the shelves. They worked with Walter's radio playing from the front room. It faded whenever clouds thickened and returned during the commercials. At lunch, Rachel stood by the river eating salad from a paper bowl. "I forgot how much I liked it here," she said. "You complained about mosquitoes. I still do. Mature people can hold 2 truths." June looked at her daughter's profile. Rachel had Amos's nose, though nobody had ever told her because Walter disliked comparisons to June's father. "Why did you stop coming?" Rachel asked. "Life." "That isn't an answer. Your father didn't enjoy it after Granddad died. He didn't enjoy it before. That's unfair. Is it?" June pulled a dead blossom from the rosemary. "Walter always felt judged here. By Granddad, by everything. Amos could repair an engine with wire and foul language. Your father called someone if a cabinet door squeaked. He was good at other things." "I know. Did you want to come?" June watched the water fold around a half-submerged log. "Yes." Rachel waited. "I could have insisted," June said. "I didn't." "Why?" "Because I had already insisted on a number of things. Staying close to my father, helping Daniel with his first business, keeping the house when Walter wanted something smaller. Marriage becomes a set of trades nobody writes down. Were you unhappy?" "No." June answered too quickly, then corrected herself. "Sometimes." So was he. Rachel sat beside her on the step. "I don't know what to do with answers like that." "You don't have to do anything. They're not furniture." Rachel leaned her shoulder against June's. Daniel called while they were painting the first cabinet door. Rachel's phone rang, then June's. Neither answered. A moment later, Rachel received a message. "He wants to know whether your car has been checked. I made an appointment for Tuesday. He says he can get you in with Rick tomorrow. Rick has a boat payment." Rachel smiled and typed. "What did you say?" "That you made an appointment." The phone rang again. Rachel turned it off. June looked at her. "You don't have to ignore him for me. I'm ignoring him for myself." "New program." They finished 2 doors before the light failed. The paint dried brighter than expected, almost cheerful. Rachel slept in the north bedroom after Otis declared the old water stain harmless. And in the morning, she found June on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. "This one is yours," June said. Rachel accepted it solemnly. Progress. After she left, the cottage felt less empty than before. The green cabinet doors remained propped against the wall, holding the shape of the weekend. June's new routine accumulated through ordinary repetition. She drove to the grocery store. She paid Marisol for gas despite an argument. She took the car to a garage where the mechanic aligned the front wheels and confirmed Daniel had been right about the pull. She told him nothing about it. Otis finished the porch. Lena returned to correct a kitchen outlet. June learned which floorboard creaked outside the bedroom and which river sound meant a passing barge rather than rising water. She slept through a falling branch. The cottage demanded something every day, but it did not demand surrender. When June could not move a cabinet, she paid Otis. When her wrist swelled, she wore the brace. When the chimney estimate exceeded what remained in her repair budget, She postponed using the iron stove and kept the baseboard heater. Her independence looked less like doing everything and more like deciding what help would cost. 2 weeks after Rachel's visit, June drove back to the suburban house for warmer clothes and Walter's tax records. The grass had been cut. 2 packages sat on the porch addressed to Daniel's company. June carried them inside. The foyer smelled wrong, not dirty, disturbed. A pale rectangle showed on the hall table where the brass lamp had stood. In the dining room, 4 chairs were gone. The sideboard drawers hung open. June walked into Walter's study. Boxes covered the floor. Some were labeled Donate. Others said Daniel Garage. Walter's desk had been cleared except for a roll of packing tape and a black marker. On top of one box lay the red-handled screwdriver Walter had used for everything, though it fit almost nothing. June picked it up. Through the study window, she could see the garage door standing open. Daniel's ladders, buckets, and power tools filled the space where Walter's workbench had been. A white paper tag hung from Amos's dining table. $300, it said. June stood very still. Then she heard a key turn in the front door. Daniel came in carrying a stack of flattened boxes beneath one arm. He saw June in the study and stopped. For a second, neither of them spoke. The flattened boxes slipped against his shirt with a dry cardboard hiss. "You're here," he said. "So are you." "I saw your car." June held up Walter's screwdriver. "Where is the hall lamp?" Daniel set the boxes down. "Elise took it to our place." "Why?" "She likes it." "It wasn't offered." "We thought you were getting rid of things." "Who is we?" His gaze moved toward the dining room, where the white tag hung from Amos's table. June followed him. $300? That's just a starting price. How generous of you. "Mom, don't do this." She pulled the tag from the table. A strip of adhesive remained on the old wood. "Don't do what? Enter my own house? Act like I'm stealing from you. What would you call removing my furniture without asking?" "Helping." The answer came too quickly. Daniel seemed to hear it after he said it. June walked to the sideboard and opened the first drawer. Empty. The second contained placemats and a silver serving spoon wrapped in newspaper. The road map and cottage photographs were gone, though she had taken those with her. The bare spaces still startled her. "Where are the dining chairs?" "In the garage, with your ladders. I moved some equipment here temporarily." "You moved into my garage. My shop roof leaked after that pipe broke. Half the back wall is wet. So you used my house. It's empty." "No, it is unoccupied. Those are different words." Daniel rubbed his hand over his mouth. "You left for weeks. I did not disappear. You wouldn't answer half my calls. I answered the calls that were conversations. What does that even mean? It means I stopped answering inspections." He paced into the dining room. He wore the same work boots that had left pale dust across June's clean floor. Walter had never allowed boots past the hall, though Walter had been responsible for most of the dirt. "Do you understand what happens to an empty house?" Daniel asked. "Pipes leak. People notice nobody's here. Insurance companies ask questions. I spoke to the insurance company." "When?" "Before I left. You never told me." June looked at him. "You keep saying that as if information is rent I owe you. I'm the one who gets called when something goes wrong, because you have trained everyone to call you, because I show up." The words struck cleanly. Daniel stood beneath the dining room light, breathing hard. June saw the boy, the man, and the frightened son in the same face. He had shown up. He had carried Walter from the bathroom floor. He had chosen the headstone. He had repaired the back steps during a week when he was already behind on 2 jobs. But showing up did not make every room his. "You do," June said. "And then you take over so completely nobody can remember whether they asked." His mouth tightened. June pointed toward the garage. "Everything belonging to your business is out by Friday. The lamp comes back. The chairs come back. Nothing else leaves this house unless I choose it. What are you going to do with all of it?" "I don't know. That's why I started sorting. You put Walter's tools in a donation box. He had duplicates of half this stuff. He had reasons for keeping bent nails. Dad kept broken drill bits and coffee cans." "Yes, it's junk. It is my junk." Daniel kicked lightly at the edge of a box. "You're not going to use it. That was never the test." "What's the test?" "Whether it belongs to you." He looked toward the garage again. "This is my childhood home, too." "No, it is the home where you had a childhood." That does not make it yours while I'm alive. Silence spread through the dining room. Daniel flinched first. Jesus, Mom. You started emptying it as though I had died with your father. That is not what I'm doing. Then tell me what you're doing. His face went red. I'm trying to keep things moving. You left. The shop got wet. Elise and I don't have room. The house needs to be cleared eventually, and every time I ask what your plan is, you make some smart remark and hang up. Because you asked for my plan, so you can replace it. Because there has to be one. There is. He waited. June had not known there was a plan until that moment. She had only known that the house no longer felt safe from his decisions. I'm going to sell it, she said. Daniel went still. Not shocked exactly. The possibility had already lived between them. But he had imagined a sale that passed through him, perhaps toward him, with enough family language to soften the arithmetic. When? He asked. When I'm ready. What about all this? I'll sort it. You can't move a cabinet without hurting yourself. I can hire help. That's a waste of money. My money. Do you hear yourself? More clearly than I have in years. Daniel laughed once without humor. So that's it. You sell the house to some stranger, dump Dad's things, and pour everything into that cottage because I made you mad. I am not rebuilding the cottage to punish you. You wouldn't even be there if I hadn't taken the keys. No, June said. I might still be here, waiting for you to decide which room I could keep. His eyes dropped. She had found the ugly center. Neither of them wanted to look at it. Daniel reached into his pocket and took out her original car key. Walter's grocery tag hung from the ring. He placed it on the table. I was going to give this back Sunday. After you brought me home, I wanted to know you were safe. You wanted me to agree that you were right. What's the difference if I was? June picked up the key ring. The plastic tag had a white crease near the hole where Walter had reinforced it with clear tape. You don't get to decide I'm incapable, she said, then use my resistance as proof. Daniel's eyes shone, though his voice remained flat. Friday, 5 o'clock. I have work. So, do the people whose garages you usually rent? He gathered the flattened boxes. At the front door, he stopped. You should know Elise didn't take the lamp, he said. I brought it over. She said you hadn't offered. June's anger shifted its target, leaving behind a fresh disappointment. Then bring it back. He nodded. After he left, June locked the door with the house key he had returned to her dresser weeks earlier. The lock felt meaningless now. Daniel had another copy. Possibly two. She called the locksmith who had programmed the car key. He could come the following morning. Then June went through the house, room by room. The missing chairs were stacked in the garage behind Daniel's wet saw. Walter's workbench had been shoved against the wall. His vise lay on the floor beneath a tarp. Daniel's ladders leaned over the cabinet where June kept holiday dishes. In the guest bedroom, boxes labeled Donate contained Walter's sweaters, 2 lamps, Amos's fishing net, and the framed photograph of Rachel accepting an award at the museum. June sat on the bed with the photograph in her lap. Anger had carried her efficiently until then. Alone in the quiet room, it left. She remembered Daniel at 8, asleep beneath the dining table during a thunderstorm because Walter was refinishing the floors and had told him not to walk across them. She remembered Rachel at 14, reading under the covers while June pretended not to see the flashlight. She remembered Elise dancing with Walter in the kitchen at her wedding shower, both of them making up steps. A house could belong to one person on paper and still hold everybody's fingerprints. That did not mean they could take it apart without her. June slept in her own bed that night. She lay on Walter's side because hers felt unfamiliar. The ceiling crack Daniel had noticed seemed longer in the moonlight. Pipes ticked in the walls. At 2, the ice maker dropped a tray and June woke with her heart racing, expecting river branches. Neither house was quiet in the way she remembered. The locksmith arrived at 9. He changed the front and back locks while Mrs. Hanley crossed the street carrying an envelope that had been delivered to her by mistake. Everything all right? She asked, watching him work. Fine. Daniel's been coming by quite a bit, so I noticed. He said he was helping you clear out. I noticed that too. Mrs. Hanley examined June's face. Walter never let anybody clear a drawer. Walter kept appliance manuals from machines we no longer owned. My Frank kept telephone cords. They might have opened a museum together. Mrs. Hanley smiled, then lowered her voice. Daniel's truck was here after dark Monday. June looked toward the garage. Thank you, she said. She did not ask for a report of every visit. She did not want to become Daniel in the opposite direction, collecting evidence. Rachel arrived after lunch, having driven from Richmond before dawn. She entered with coffee, work gloves, and a roll of colored stickers. "I have a system," she announced. June held up one hand. "Before you explain it, is there a category for things we are not emotionally prepared to discuss?" "Purple. I like purple." They began in the kitchen. Red stickers meant Cottage. Blue meant Rachel or Daniel, if offered and accepted. Yellow meant sell. Green meant donate. Purple meant close the door and try another day. The first hour produced mostly purple. Rachel found the blackened saucepan beneath the sink. "This?" June took it from her. The brown ring remained faintly visible on the bottom. "Cottage," she said. Rachel put a red sticker on it without comment. They worked until Daniel's truck arrived Friday at 4:43. Elise followed in the blue sedan. Daniel tried his old key at the front door before knocking. June heard the key scrape and fail. He knocked once. Rachel looked at her mother across the dining room. June opened the door. Daniel's face revealed nothing, but his hand still held the useless key. "I brought your lamp," he said. Elise stood behind him carrying it. He brought the cord. For an instant, nobody moved. Then June stepped aside. Daniel and Elise carried out his equipment, while June and Rachel restored Walter's workbench. The wet saw went first, then ladders, buckets, compressors, and boxes of fittings. Daniel worked without speaking. Elise returned the dining chairs and removed the price tag adhesive from Amos's table with oil and a soft cloth. Near sunset, Daniel found the box containing Walter's tools. "Are you selling these?" he asked. "I haven't decided. He wanted me to have the socket set. Did he tell you that?" "No." "Then how do you know?" Daniel looked at the scarred metal case. "Because we used it together." June wanted to argue. The habit rose quickly. Protect the object, protect her authority, refuse because he expected yes. Then she remembered Walter on the garage floor, handing Daniel sockets while the radio played. Daniel had not invented that memory. "You may take the socket set," she said. His head lifted. "Not the whole box. That set." He crouched and picked it up with both hands. "Thank you." The words were careful, almost formal. At 5:12, the garage was empty of Mercer contracting equipment. Daniel stood at the end of the driveway while Elise arranged the last buckets in his truck. "You changed the locks," he said. "Yes." "You could have asked for my key. I asked for my car key." He absorbed the answer. "Are you really selling?" "Yes." "To who?" "I haven't listed it." "Will you tell me before you do?" June studied him. The question was not a demand, though it leaned in that direction from long practice. "I'll tell you," she said. "What are you going to do with the money? Make sure I can care for myself without needing you to solve every emergency." His face tightened. "That sounds like a punishment. It is a retirement plan." Elise closed the truck bed. Daniel put Walter's socket set on the passenger floor and climbed in. June watched them drive away. Then she returned to the dining room, where Rachel was waiting beside Amos's table with the colored stickers. "Which color is the house?" Rachel asked. June looked around at the open drawers, the bare rectangles, the objects waiting for judgment. "None yet," she said. "We're still deciding what it means." The house meant different things depending on the room. In the kitchen, it meant 30 years of grocery lists tucked beneath a ceramic magnet shaped like a peach. In Walter's study, it meant bills paid on time, and every pen returned to the same mug. In the bedroom, it meant 2 closets that had slowly become one, without June ever deciding to take his empty hangers down. Rachel found Walter's brown winter coat and held it by the shoulders. "Daniel," she said. June touched the worn cuff. Walter had worn it to Daniel's first workshop when the heat failed, to Rachel's museum dinner, and to Amos's funeral. It smelled faintly of cedar now, nothing more. "Blue sticker," June said. "Offered, not assigned." "Offered." Rachel put the coat aside. They filled 6 donation boxes before lunch. 2 held clothes. 1 held kitchen equipment June had bought because magazine recipes insisted she needed it. The others contained objects that became meaningless the moment she had to explain them. The purple category grew fastest. Walter's shoes. His reading glasses. The hospital blanket Daniel had brought home because June said it was a good blanket and then never unfolded. Rachel closed that box without labeling it. "We can come back," she said. June nodded. At the cottage that evening, she found Amos's jelly jar on the mantel and dropped Walter's red-handled screwdriver into it. The tool landed among the fishing flies with a soft clink. 2 lives could share a container without canceling each other. June chose a real estate agent in June after interviewing 3. Celia Brooks wore comfortable shoes and did not call the house a gem until she had looked at the roof. "The kitchen is dated," Celia said. "So am I. Dated can be charming. At my age, they call it active." Celia laughed, then gave June a direct estimate of what the house might bring and what repairs would increase the price. The figures were solid, not miraculous. The paid-off house represented most of what June and Walter had saved through decades of ordinary restraint. It was security, but only if June treated it as hers to use, rather than a prize she had to preserve for people who might outlive her. She called Daniel before Celia put up the sign. "I'm listing the house Thursday," she said. He was silent long enough that June checked whether the call had dropped. "You said you'd tell me. I'm telling you. 2 days before. How many would make it different?" "I don't know. More than 2. If you want to make an offer, Celia can give you the information. You know we can't afford market price." "Yes." The words sounded cruel, though facts were not obligated to sound kind. Daniel lowered his voice. "Would you consider what I'd inherit anyway?" June closed her eyes. She was sitting at Amos's table in the cottage, the repaired porch visible through the window. An estimate for replacement windows lay beside her. So did a brochure about long-term care insurance and a list of questions for her financial advisor. None of those things were glamorous. All of them cost money. "I may live another 20 years, she said. "I know that. Do you?" "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean? That instead of paying all the fees and selling it to strangers, you could help us buy it, by giving you part of my future now. It would stay in the family. I am the family it belongs to now." Daniel's breath caught. "Everything with you has become a line in the sand. No, some things are simply boundaries. You only notice them because there used to be none." He ended the call first. The sign went up Thursday. Daniel did not take Walter's coat. He sent a message saying he had one. June folded it back into the purple box. The house sold after 7 weeks, following 2 offers that fell apart for ordinary reasons, and 1 inspection that discovered the water heater was older than anyone admitted. June paid for a replacement, rejected Celia's suggestion to repaint every room gray, and accepted an offer from 2 adult sisters who planned to live together after retirement. They admired Amos's dining table, but June told them it was going with her. On moving day, paid men carried it through the front door, while Rachel directed traffic with colored stickers. June stood in the empty dining room and looked at the pale shapes on the walls where pictures had hung. The house echoed. Daniel had not come. Elise arrived alone with sandwiches and helped sweep beneath Walter's workbench. She wore her sunglasses inside for the first half hour. "He's working," she said. June did not ask whether that was true. Elise leaned the broom against the wall. "We're listing ours." June looked at her. "It's too much house for what we can comfortably pay. We should have admitted it 2 years ago." "I'm sorry. I'm not sure I am." "Ask me after we move. Does Daniel agree?" "He agrees when he's awake." There was more behind the answer. June waited, but Elise did not offer it. "Do you need help?" June asked. Elise gave a small, tired smile. "With moving boxes, maybe. Not with the mortgage." The distinction was deliberate. June appreciated her for making it. After fees, taxes, the water heater, movers, and the remaining cottage work, the sale left June secure, but not wealthy. She placed most of the money where it could pay for the future she could not predict. She reserved enough to replace the cottage windows, repair the gutters, and build a small emergency fund for whatever the river or her body decided next. She did not give Daniel an advance. August heat settled over River Road. The repaired electrical system allowed a window air conditioner in the bedroom, though June had to close the door to keep the cool air from escaping. Amos's dining table dominated the small front room. Otis complained that it was too large. "It has fit in my life for 60 years, June said. "The room can adjust." Rachel came down twice to paint. Marisol appeared most mornings without knocking, until June pointed out that the entire story of her summer had begun with someone entering without permission. Marisol considered that. Afterward, she knocked and came in at the same time. June's wrist healed slowly. She stopped wearing the brace in September and discovered that the weakness remained. Otis moved the kitchen cabinet. June paid him, stood out of the way, and felt only mildly defeated. She began cooking Sunday supper again, first for Marisol, then for Otis and Lena. Lena brought wine. Otis brought nothing and claimed his company was perishable. They ate roasted chicken at Amos's table, while Walter's radio faded in and out behind them. Nobody cut June's meat. Rachel joined them in October. Daniel declined. He says he has work, she told June. He may. He doesn't. Then he isn't ready. Rachel looked toward the empty chair. Are you? June passed the beans, apparently not enough to call him. Rachel let the answer stand. The first anniversary of Walter's death came in November. June woke before dawn and drove to the cemetery alone. She parked beneath the young maple and carried a thermos to his grave. The air smelled of cold leaves. She sat on the folding chair she kept in her trunk and poured 2 cups of coffee before she realized what she had done. For a long moment, she stared at the second cup. Then she set it on the grass beside the stone. You still don't need it, she said. A car door closed behind her. Daniel approached in Walter's brown coat. June stood. He stopped several feet away, hands in the pockets. The sleeves were a little short. You said you didn't want it, she said. Rachel brought it. I see. She said blue meant offered. It did. Daniel looked at the coffee beside the stone. You poured him one? Habit. He nodded as though habit required no explanation. They stood together without touching. Daniel told Walter that the business had lost a roofing contract because a customer's cousin had offered to do it for half the price. June told Walter the cottage windows no longer rattled. Daniel mentioned nothing about the house. June did not ask about his. When she packed the chair, Daniel said, You could have told me you were coming. So could you. I didn't know until this morning. Neither did I. He rubbed his thumb along the coat pocket. Elise says you invited us for Thanksgiving. I invited both of you. She says we're going. What do you say? Daniel looked at his father's name carved in stone. I say she's probably right. Thanksgiving was not a reconciliation. It was a meal. Daniel arrived with 2 pies and a toolbox he did not open. He asked before tightening the loose handle on the bathroom door. June said yes. Elise brought sweet potatoes. Rachel burned the rolls and blamed the cottage oven. Marisol came for dessert and told Daniel the story of Amos eating ancient mustard. The laughter was real, so was the caution. When Daniel left, he hugged June and said, Call if the weather turns. She almost told him she had an evacuation plan pinned inside the pantry. Instead, she said, Drive carefully. Winter narrowed the cottage life. Bare trees exposed more of the river. Ice edged the bank on the coldest mornings. June learned which roads froze first and kept water, batteries, and food in the pantry. Otis installed a handrail on the back steps after she slipped once and bruised her hip. She hated the handrail for 2 days, then used it every morning. Daniel called on Sundays. Some weeks they talked for 20 minutes. Other weeks they argued in 5. He stopped asking when she would come home because the suburban house belonged to the retired sisters now. He began asking whether the cottage was home. June did not answer until February. Yes, she said. The silence on his end was not anger. It was grief. By March, rain had replaced ice. The river rose over the lower stones, fell, then rose again. Marisol showed June the old pencil marks Amos had made inside the shed, each labeled with a year. If it reaches this one, Marisol said, touching a mark at her shoulder, we leave. Where? My sister's. Otis has a trailer if the road's still passable. June wrote the plan in her own hand and pinned it inside the pantry. She packed medication, documents, clothes, Walter's watch, and the cottage key in a small overnight bag. The bag stayed beneath her bed. She told Rachel about the plan. She told Daniel only that the river was high. Then 3 days of rain arrived. Water covered the bottom step by Friday morning. Otis came to check the porch and found it sound. Marisol moved her car to higher ground. June lifted boxes from the shed floor, carried what she could, and left the rest. By evening, the road remained open, but the river had reached the lowest mark Amos had drawn. June's phone showed 4 missed calls from Daniel. A 5th began while she was tightening the strap on her overnight bag. She answered. I'm coming down, he said. Daniel, wait. I saw the flood warning. I have a plan. You always have a plan. Yes, June said. That is what you keep refusing to believe. Thunder rolled over the river. Daniel had already ended the call. June put the phone in her coat pocket and continued packing. The overnight bag held enough for 2 nights. Medication in the side compartment. Wallet and insurance information in the inner pocket. Walter's watch wrapped in a clean handkerchief. She added her phone charger, removed a second sweater, then put it back. The kitchen light flickered. Not tonight, she told it. Rain struck the windows in hard diagonal lines. The river was no longer brown so much as gray, its surface broken by branches and pale strips of foam. Water pressed against the bottom step and withdrew, pressed and withdrew, as if testing the cottage. June checked the pencil mark inside the shed again. The water had climbed the width of 2 fingers in less than an hour. Her fear was not the wild, helpless thing Daniel imagined. It was specific. The car might not clear the low stretch of River Road. The baseboard heater could lose power. The river might enter the shed and ruin Amos's old garden tools. The cottage could be damaged after she had spent so much making it livable. Specific fear allowed tasks. She moved the last tool crate onto a shelf. She unplugged the bedroom heater. She placed Otis's list, her checkbook, and the colored sticker folder inside a plastic tub on Amos's table. Then she shut every window and tested the back door. Headlights swept across the front room. June reached the porch expecting Daniel's truck. Otis climbed out of the green pickup, wearing a yellow raincoat and a hat that had surrendered completely. Water streamed from his beard. "Marisol's ready," he said. "So am I." He looked at the river. "We've got maybe 45 minutes before the low bend becomes a creek. I told Daniel not to come." "Did he hear you?" He ended the call. "So, no." Otis took June's overnight bag from beside the door, then paused. "May I?" The question in that moment nearly undid her. Yes. He carried it to her car. Marisol drove up behind him, her pickup loaded with blankets, 2 coolers, a suitcase, and several potted herbs tied upright in a laundry basket. She lowered the window. "The rosemary survived 7 years of neglect. It is not drowning on my watch." "Where are we going?" June asked. "My sister's if Route 6 is clear, Otis's place if it isn't." Otis's house sat on a ridge 4 miles inland, above every flood Amos had recorded. His travel trailer remained plugged in beside the barn, prepared for company. June locked the cottage. The brass key stuck, as it always did, until she pulled the door toward her. A truck engine roared around the bend. Daniel came too fast. His tires slid in the mud before catching. He parked at an angle across the yard, jumped out, and ran toward June without a coat. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Leaving. Then get in the truck. I have a car." He reached for the overnight bag in Otis's hand. Otis did not release it. Daniel looked at him. "I've got it. So do I." June stepped between them. "Otis, put it in my trunk." Daniel stared at her. Rain ran from his hair over his forehead. "You cannot drive that car through the low bend." "We just came through it," Otis said. "It's open. For how long?" "Long enough if we leave instead of holding a meeting." Daniel turned toward the river and saw the water against the step. His face changed. "Jesus Christ, Mom. I did not put the river there. You waited too long. I am leaving before the mark we agreed on. We, Marisol, Otis, and I." Daniel looked toward the pickups as if noticing the plan for the first time. Marisol's coolers were strapped down. Otis had a tow chain looped over his tailgate. June's car faced the road, overnight bag loaded, keys in her hand. He still reached for them. June closed her fist. "No, I'm not arguing in a flood. You are the only person arguing. Give me the keys. I'll drive your car. You came in your truck. I'll leave it and get it later. That makes no sense. It makes sense if I know you're safe. I am evacuating with 2 people who have lived beside this river for decades. And you trust them more than me." The question came out younger than Daniel intended. June felt rain soaking through the shoulders of her coat. Otis stepped away, giving them privacy without abandoning her. Marisol looked toward the road and checked her watch. "This is not about ranking love," June said. "You called Marisol when the river scared you. You called Otis to fix the house. You called Rachel to move you. You call everybody except me, because each of them did what I asked." Daniel's mouth opened. June held up one hand. "You may help. You may drive behind me. You may carry my bag when I say yes. But you do not get to arrive as my supervisor. Mom, the water is at your porch, and I am leaving. What if I hadn't come? I would still be leaving." The answer struck him harder than anger. A branch rolled in the river and hit the sycamore trunk with a hollow crack. Daniel flinched toward the sound. "I saw the warning," he said. "I called you 4 times. I was moving boxes. I thought you were trapped. You always think I'm trapped when you cannot see me. I thought you were going to stay because leaving would mean I was right." June looked at him. Rain ran into her eyes. "Is that what you believe this year has been? Me arranging my life to defeat you, isn't it? No. He gave a harsh laugh. You moved the morning after I took your keys. 3 mornings after. You sold the house. I no longer wanted it. You stopped helping with the business. I stopped working for free. You changed the locks. You started emptying rooms that were not yours. Every answer found its place. Daniel had built a case from consequences and called them revenge because that was easier than examining their causes. Marisol leaned from her truck. The road, June. We're coming. Daniel moved closer. Ride with me. No. Why does everything have to be no? Because you still ask questions as if yes is the only acceptable answer. He stood there, soaked, furious, and afraid. June could see how badly he wanted to lift her into the truck and let the emergency excuse everything. She softened her voice. Drive behind me. His eyes met hers. If the car gets stuck, you can pull it out, she said. If the road closes, we go to Otis's. Help with what is happening, not what you imagined. Otis handed June her bag. She put it in the trunk herself. They left in a line, Marisol first, June second, Daniel behind her, Otis last. The low bend held 4 inches of moving water. Marisol crossed slowly. June followed in the tire path, hands steady on the wheel. Water hissed beneath the car. Daniel's headlights filled her mirror. She reached dry pavement. At Route 6, a fallen limb blocked half the road, and water had begun covering the shoulder. Otis pulled alongside and pointed uphill toward his place. Nobody argued. His house smelled of coffee, wet wool, and machine oil. The power remained on. Marisol installed the rosemary beside the kitchen window and announced that she would sleep in the trailer because Otis snored like industrial equipment. I do not, he said. You sleep through it. Otis gave June the guest room. Daniel stood in the mudroom dripping onto a rubber mat while June changed into dry clothes. When she returned, he had borrowed a sweatshirt from Otis. The sleeves ended above his wrists. He looked ridiculous and did not know it. Marisol put soup on the stove. Otis checked the weather radio. The river was expected to crest after midnight. Daniel paced. Sit, June said. I'm fine. Then paced more quietly. He sat at Otis's kitchen table. No one asked him to make decisions. Otis knew the roads. Marisol knew which properties sat lowest. June knew what she had packed and left behind. Daniel's phone rang with calls from Elise, Rachel, and one of his workers. He answered Elise first. She's here, he said. She's safe. June heard Elise reply, though not the words. Yes, Daniel said. I know. He hung up and looked at June. Rachel says you gave her the evacuation plan last week. I did. You didn't give it to me. I told you the river was high. That's not a plan. You had already told me what my plan should be. Leave immediately and come back to town. Which would have worked. So did mine. He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. Why is it so terrible that I wanted you closer? It wasn't. His head lifted. It became terrible when wanting me closer turned into deciding I couldn't be trusted. I never said you couldn't be trusted. You called me confused. You left a burner on. For 3 minutes. You drove to the wrong pharmacy. Halfway. You poured coffee down the sink. That was intentional. Marisol hid a smile over the soup pot. Daniel pressed his palms together. Dad was getting worse, and both of you kept telling me it was manageable. Then he was on the bathroom floor. Then he was dead. Do you understand how fast that happened for me? It did not happen fast for me. I know. No, you don't. You came on Saturdays and fixed hinges. I was there every hour. I wanted you to call. Walter asked me not to. You should have anyway. Yes, June said. Daniel stopped. I should have called the ambulance sooner that day. I should have told you more. I was scared and tired, and I let your father's pride become my instructions. Daniel stared at the floor. But if you are waiting for me to say that would have saved him, she continued, I can't. His face crumpled briefly before he covered it with both hands. June did not cross the room. Comfort had too often become erasure in their family. She let him feel what he felt. I wasn't there, he said behind his hands. No, I should have been. You were at work. I should have known. Daniel, he was dying. Knowing earlier would not have made you powerful. He lowered his hands. His eyes were red. I needed you somewhere I could get to you, he said. Hawthorne was 10 minutes away. Your house was 20. I thought if you were down here and something happened, I'd do the same thing again. Fail someone? Yes. The admission emptied him. June sat opposite him. So, you made me the emergency before there was one. He looked toward the dark window. Maybe? And the house? His jaw tightened. Tell the truth, June said. Not because the river is high, because I already know. Daniel rubbed his thumb over a scratch in Otis's table. I wanted it, he said. Elise wanted out from under the mortgage. I thought if you moved, we could buy yours without competing with anybody. I thought it would help everybody. Did you think I wanted to sell? I thought you would once you saw Hawthorne. You had arranged my agreement in your mind. Yes. The word was barely audible. Otis switched off the weather radio and carried it into the next room. Marisol followed with bowls, granting the family privacy in the most practical way possible. Daniel looked at June. I was scared, and I saw a solution that helped me. Both things were true. Yes, I'm sorry. The apology did not repair the year. It did not return the keys at the moment she had asked, or put Walter's tools back in their box. But it was the first apology Daniel had offered, without explaining why June should accept it. She nodded. What do I do now? He asked. Tonight? With you. June considered the question. Ask. Ask what? Before you enter. Before you fix. Before you carry. Before you tell me what my life means. Daniel gave a small, exhausted laugh. That's a lot of asking. You'll improve with practice. The river crested below Amos's highest mark. By morning, the rain had weakened to a mist. The low bend remained covered, so they waited until noon before returning. Daniel did not object. Mud coated the cottage yard. Water had entered the shed and toppled 2 boxes June had left on the floor. The porch steps were slick with silt, but the water had stopped below the door. Inside, the lights worked. Amos's table stood dry. June unlocked the cottage and entered first. Daniel remained on the porch. May I come in? He asked. She looked back at him. His wet boots were muddy. He had Otis's borrowed sweatshirt folded beneath one arm. He seemed uncertain in a way June had rarely seen. Yes, she said. Take off your boots. He did. They inspected the rooms together. No broken windows. No water beneath the doors. The old stain in the north bedroom remained dry. June let herself breathe. Outside, Marisol cursed over her flattened rosemary. Otis inspected the porch post and declared his own work magnificent. Daniel stood beside the shed, looking at the mud and scattered tools. Can I help? He asked. June handed him a shovel. Start with what actually happened, she said. Daniel shoveled mud from the shed until the clean metal edge struck the concrete floor. He stopped each time he found something and held it up for June's decision. Keep Amos's rusted minnow bucket. Keep. A sack of potting soil split down the side. Throw it out. A wooden toolbox swollen shut. Set it in the sun. He did not say the minnow bucket was useless or the toolbox probably ruined. He made 2 piles and followed instructions. It should not have felt remarkable. It did. Marisol knelt in her yard repotting the rosemary while insulting the river in Spanish. Otis washed silt from the cottage steps with a hose and announced that the porch post had survived because of superior workmanship. It survived because the water didn't reach it, Lena said when she arrived with work gloves and coffee. Superior elevation, Otis replied. They worked until the afternoon light turned pale. June scrubbed the lower shed shelves with her good hand and tried not to imagine what would have happened if water had reached the cottage door. She had made a plan. The plan had worked. Fear remained anyway. Daniel came out carrying the plastic tub that had toppled from a lower shelf. The lid had cracked. Inside, several of Amos's old seed catalogs were soaked through. June took one. The pages separated beneath her fingers, bleeding green and red ink. Amos had circled vegetables he meant to plant and written his own prices in the margins because he considered the catalog dishonest. They're gone, she said. We could dry them. No. Daniel looked at the catalog in her hands. You kept them all this time. I forgot they were there. The admission did not frighten either of them. She placed the catalogs in the trash pile. Daniel stayed through supper. He accepted soup from Marisol, listened to Otis describe 3 better ways to manage flood storage, and did not offer a 4th. When he noticed June rubbing her wrist, he asked whether she wanted him to finish washing the tools. Yes, she said. He washed them. At dusk, he loaded Otis's borrowed sweatshirt into his truck. June walked him to the road. Do you want me to come back tomorrow? He asked. Are you free? After 1. You can help move the boxes onto higher shelves. He nodded. 1:30? 1:30. He glanced toward the cottage, then at her. Are you staying tonight? Yes. His concern appeared so quickly she could almost watch him reach for the old words. The road might flood again. The river was still high. 1 heater. No nearby hospital. He swallowed them. Will you call if the water rises? Yes. Will you actually? Yes, Daniel. All right. He opened his truck door, then closed it again and hugged her. There was nothing careful about it. His shirt smelled of rain, mud, and the same laundry soap June had bought for him when he lived at home. She held him until he stepped back. Drive slowly at the low bend, she said. I know. I had to say one thing. Fair. For the first month after the flood, Daniel asked too much. May I look at the porch? May I check your tires? May I call Otis about the gutters? May I bring a dehumidifier? His new restraint had the rigid quality of a man carrying a full glass across a moving floor. Sometimes June said yes. Sometimes she said no. Twice he argued after no, and caught himself halfway through. That wasn't asking, she told him, when he insisted she needed brighter lights at the back steps. No, he admitted, that was asking with a trap door. Your father specialized in those. Daniel bought the lights anyway, but left them in his truck. A week later, June asked him to install one. He did not mention the week. His business did not collapse without her. It became more expensive. Daniel hired a part-time office manager named Ruth, who found 3 unpaid invoices and refused to answer work calls after 5. He complained about her boundaries so bitterly that Elise laughed for a full minute. She sounds excellent, June said. She charges $28 an hour. So did I. You simply failed to pay me. Daniel looked embarrassed. I know. He paid Ruth. The oversized house Daniel and Elise had bought during a better year sold at the end of summer. They moved into a smaller brick townhouse with a short mortgage and no room for Mercer contracting equipment. Daniel rented proper storage near his shop. June helped pack their kitchen for one afternoon. At 5, she folded her newspaper, washed the mug she had used, and picked up her purse. You're leaving? Daniel asked. I said I could help until 5. We're almost done. You have 17 cabinets. 16. Then you're almost less done than you think. Elise handed June her coat. Go. I'm trying to teach him that clocks are real. June left. She did not write them a check. Instead, she gave Elise the blue serving bowl with the chipped rim because Elise had admired it for years. Daniel received Walter's radio for his shop on the condition that he return it if he ever replaced the dial with something digital. You're giving me this? He asked. I have another radio. Does it work? Consistently. I find it unsettling. He held Walter's radio by its cracked handle. I'll take care of it. I know. June kept Amos's table, Walter's watch, the red-handled screwdriver, and the blackened saucepan. Most of the purple boxes eventually became red, blue, green, or trash. One remained purple beneath the bed in the north room. It contained Walter's shoes, reading glasses, and the hospital blanket. There was no deadline on grief. Rachel came whenever work allowed, and sometimes when it did not. She brought books for the shelves and refused to organize June's kitchen after June moved the coffee mugs twice. They spoke more honestly now, which did not mean they always spoke kindly. When Rachel accused June of answering Daniel's calls more quickly than hers, June began to defend him, stopped, and said, You're right. Rachel blinked. I had another paragraph. Save it. I may relapse. At Thanksgiving, Rachel told Daniel the story over pie. Daniel said June's new habit of admitting mistakes was suspicious. June replied that a confused woman could not be held responsible. The table went silent for one beat. Then Daniel laughed, not the strained laugh he had used in the supermarket or the wounded one from the house. A real laugh startled out of him. June joined him. Rachel covered her mouth. Elise laughed hardest of all. Marisol raised her glass. If we are finished making terrible jokes, there is more pie. The cottage changed slowly enough that June could remember paying for every improvement. New gutters, insulation beneath the north bedroom, a safer handrail down to the river. Otis built higher shelves in the shed and labeled one June's Useless Treasures. She painted over useless and wrote selected. Her modest garden produced tomatoes, beans, and rosemary that Marisol admitted was better than hers. June did not mention that Marisol's plant had nearly drowned. This was how friendship demonstrated growth. The anniversary of the key incident arrived without ceremony. June noticed only because she found the blackened saucepan while making Sunday dinner. She turned it over in her hands. The brown ring had never disappeared completely. Daniel entered through the open screen door, stopped, then backed out onto the porch. He knocked on the frame. June looked at him. The door was open. "I'm practicing." "You've been practicing for a year." "I'm a slow learner." "You're late." "I brought chicken." "I made chicken." Daniel lifted the grocery bag. "Then I brought tomorrow's chicken." Elise followed with flowers. Rachel arrived an hour later from Richmond, complaining about traffic. Marisol came through the back after knocking once and not waiting. Otis brought bread and announced that Lena was avoiding them because she had sensible friends. They ate at Amos's table. The windows were open to the river breeze. Walter's old radio played from a shelf in Daniel's shop 90 miles away, but June had bought a smaller one that found stations without encouragement. She sometimes smacked it anyway. After supper, Daniel carried plates to the sink. "May I mention something?" he asked. "That depends entirely on the something. The porch rail is loose." "I know. It needs 2 bolts." "Do you have 2 bolts?" He looked offended. "I have 12. Why? They came in a box. Then you may use 2. He retrieved his toolbox from the truck. June poured iced tea and watched from the porch while he tightened the rail. He worked with Walter's socket set, choosing each piece by touch. Once, he started to remove a bracket June had not authorized, caught himself, and put the wrench down. "Problem?" she asked. "No." "Different project." He tested the rail with his weight. "Done." June handed him a glass of tea. They sat side by side on the steps. The river was low, exposing a strip of stones along the bank. Afternoon light broke across the surface in bright pieces. Daniel drank half his tea. "I still don't like you being this far away." "I know. I still worry when you don't answer." "I know. Sometimes you don't answer on purpose." "Also true." He turned the glass between his palms. "Do you ever miss the old house?" "Parts of it." "Which parts?" "The kitchen window in October. The upstairs hall when you and Rachel were home. Your father complaining about leaves." Daniel smiled. He hated the sycamore. He planted it. He said that was proof nobody should make permanent decisions at 29. June looked toward the river. "I don't miss waiting for that house to tell me who I used to be." Daniel nodded slowly. "Do you regret selling it?" he asked. "No? Even a little?" "Regret is too large. I miss things." "That's smaller." The screen door opened. Elise called that Rachel was accusing Otis of cheating at cards. "He cheats," Daniel said. "He calls it experience." Daniel stood, then looked down at June. "You coming?" "In a minute." He went inside without reaching for her hand. June remained on the porch until the card game became loud enough to identify each accusation. The cottage behind her held voices, mismatched chairs, a table too large for the room, and one purple box beneath the bed. The porch still sloped slightly despite Otis's claims. One window rattled when the wind came from the east. Inside the front door, the key hook held her cottage key, car key, shed key, and mailbox key. Walter's punched grocery tag hung from the new car key now, repaired once more with clear tape. Daniel passed beneath them on his way to defend Otis. He did not touch them. June finished her tea, listened to the river moving past her father's cottage, and went inside when she was ready.